Huzzah. That should do it. That should get the audio back on, hopefully. There we go. All right. Well, I see that Hannah posts on her here. Hello, I didn't expect you to get back to streaming this early in the year. Yeah, felt like I should just dive right back on into things. Iconic is here. Hello. Great to have you here, Iconic. Say, hope you all had a fantastic holiday season with Christmas and New Year's. Anthony is here. Hello, good to see you here, Anthony Dixon. Hope that you're doing well. And again, hope everyone had a fantastic holiday season. Hey, Mimic is here. Hello there, Mr. Lars and friends. Happy New Year, everyone. Yes, Happy New Year's to everyone. Hope that 2025 is already treating you well. Only 3 days in, and other people are complaining as if the world's already falling apart. But over here in my little corner of the world, life is just moving along. So, since life is moving along, I figured that it'd be good to just already get right back into the swing of things, and just start talking about the New Year's resolution. Goal setting will kind of be the lesson, quote unquote, lesson for the night. But also, I really do want to talk about pulling experiences from our own lives and how that can be transformed into stories. And I definitely want to use the latest episode of the Amazing Digital Circus as a means of helping to illustrate that, because as someone who works in fast food, there's so much about that episode that is incredibly relatable, and that you can just tell that someone has gone through this and used that to help inform the writing of this particular episode. And I so enjoy it. And why are people trying to call me this late in the evening? Hey. Andy, Happy New Year. I had a fun and fantastic holiday season. I got through watching Bleach the 1,000-Year Blood War arc. All right. Fantastic. I am going to have to sit down and binge the entire 1,000-Year Blood War arc at some point. I will be honest. Oh man, it's embarrassing and frustrating to admit, but the way that the manga executed the final arc was really frustrating. It it still leaves a very sour taste in my mouth. And no, it's not just the whole shipping aspect of Ichigo and Rukia. Really, that is one. I mean, it's a big one for me, but it's only one of so many problems. I recently went back because one person's like, well, clearly you didn't actually read this. I'm like, oh no, I definitely did. And one person's like, see, Orihime absolutely saves Ichigo in this one chapter. I went back to that chapter. No, she doesn't. She gets pummeled. She gets absolutely obliterated by Bach. And just rereading through those chapters. And I even then presented it to my sister, who's never read Bleach before, explained without any sort of, with as blandly and as unbiasedly as possible what's going on, and just let her read. And she was like, oh, this is awful. Like, the artwork is really nice, but the story's bad. And I'm like, yeah, see, you don't even need to know the story to realize that this is bad. Ryan Phillips is here. Hello, Lars. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you as well, Ryan. Great to have you here. So I know that the anime has been doing a lot to like help fill in some of the gaps that Kubo created as he was writing the final arc, which I'm grateful for, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the anime addresses a lot of the issues that, unfortunately, it's still just that was a bad burn, especially as someone who stuck through to the very end. I was one of the last people in my circle who was still reading it by the end, because everyone else just felt burnt. So I'm hoping that the anime delivers. Fabia, did you miss much? Nope, not at all. Alrighty. So, as I said, I want to talk about tonight. I want to talk about utilizing our personal experiences to create stories. And this comes down to what so many people say, which is write what you know. But if you've paid any attention to a lot of the conversations that people have had, especially online, when it comes down to writing what you know, it's usually used in a very, very negative way. So, like, for instance, when people were talking about The Rings of Power, The Rings of Power is an awful television show. It fails even as its own independent story, never mind an adaptation of The Lord of the Rings. A lot of people were saying, like, yeah, these writers, they only write what they know, and they don't know anything. They're not like Tolkien. They haven't been in the trenches of World War One, watching friends die. They don't know what that's like, so therefore they could never write an epic fantasy. To which then my response to that is, okay then. But so many of you people who are making this argument absolutely love George R. R. Martin. I guarantee you that George R. R. Martin has never fought in a war. He has never been in the trenches. He's probably never even gone and dug one of his own trenches. I have dug a trench. And so I already have one up right there on Martin. Brandon Sanderson, the new king of fantasy. No, he's never gone into battle. He's never served in the military. He hasn't had to watch his friends brutally murdered. So does this now mean that George R. R. Martin and Brandon Sanderson are awful writers because they didn't have the experiences that Tolkien had? Absolutely not. Martin is a bad writer for a variety of reasons, and Brandon Sanderson is a great writer for a variety of reasons. And there are some things that George R. R. Martin can write well. If Martin actually applies himself to writing action, he's an amazing action writer, which is so frustrating that he doesn't do more of it. And when he wants to really write politics, he can write politics really well. But he has no understanding of the concept of an economy. Whereas Brandon Sanderson can take the boring concept of the economy and the rules of economics and make a fantasy series out of it. Maybe not quite as engaging as Spice and Wolf, but he can do pretty well. So when we talk about writing what you know, it is taking your experiences along with the knowledge that you accumulate and that you can still learn while writing and transform that into interesting stories. And so I want to now, so I kind of want to use now The Amazing Digital Circus, its 4th episode, as a segue on further into this, because is the most latest episode utilizing a restaurant, a knockoff of McDonald's and Burger King, specifically, good old Spudsies, uses that to, of course, tell the story of what's happening to Gangle, as well as bring out some more good character development for Pomni, for Ragatha, for Jax, and also for Zubul as well. So lots of good character development going on there. But what makes this actually work is how relatable these ridiculous moments in the show are. I mean, none of us have actually ever been sucked into a video game. Maybe. I'm not sure about Fabio or Ryan or Hannah. Maybe they've managed to get sucked into a video game. You lucky dogs, you. But most of us will never actually have that experience. And yet still a wacky, crazy episode like episode 4 can speak to us. So let me then quickly pop on over here. TV account. Hi, hello. Sorry, I'll have to go and get stuff from my mom later. Also, when I come back, can I get a short recap? And just let us know when you come on back, TV account. Good to have you pop on in. All right. So let's make our way on over to the restaurant itself. Now then, So talking about my own experiences in fast food. Uh, and I have written my own story based on that. It was the very first book I ever published, which is Sandwich Desperados. An honest hard day's work at Spudsy's restaurant. What I did for that book was that I took my experiences as a sandwich delivery driver for Jimmy John's and the people I worked with, who are just really interesting and bizarre individuals. Some really great ones and some others who are just all like, you're really strange. I took all of those people and transformed them into characters in my book. So there's one character in the book who you realize later on is super shady and has done a lot of illegal things. I based him off of a guy who I knew almost nothing about that I worked with. The entire time I was working with him, he was just this big bearded dude who his entire life was his car. And he was so happy to always be racing about and delivering his sandwiches, and he prided himself on having the most deliveries. And I'm like, okay, dude, it's a paycheck, but you don't need to go that hard. And it just seemed like whenever anyone would ask him about his life, he's like, my life is to work here. And I'm like, there's way more than just simply working at a restaurant. And so he became the inspiration for one of the guys in my book, who just seems as though his life is just working there at the restaurant, until you find out later on that he's a shady underground driver who wants revenge against these gangsters for having stolen his car in a high stakes race. And so he gets back at them by taking the main character and transforming him a la Grease style, Go Grease Lightning, into a racer, and has him go up against these gangsters. And so that was one aspect of it. I even have a whole thing in there poking fun at what Jimmy John's should be doing. And you guys can even go, and if you know where Jimmy John's is in your neighborhood, you can go on over there and you can even hold them to this. Can they do their sandwich within 30 seconds? So when you make an order, Jimmy John's is supposed to have that sandwich done and ready for you within 30 seconds. If it's over 30 seconds, you don't get a discount. You don't get it for free. But it's supposed to be a mark of pride and honor that Jimmy John's can deliver within 30 seconds. And so in the book I made it a point to say that we make our sandwiches over at Speedy Sammy Sandwiches. We can do it in 25 seconds or less, which if you can do a 25-second sandwich at Jimmy John's, that's impressive. That's actually very impressive. Most people hit like 28, 29 seconds as a little rule of thumb. So I took those experiences and put them into the story. So some of the things that I then want to actually bring up again with this episode, I want to watch certain aspects of this episode and then point out to you guys how someone got it right, how they used an experience that people look down on, which is working in fast food, and used it to create a good story. I mean, heck, I just want to hear from you guys. Like, what do you genuinely think of people who decide to make a career of working in fast food? Like, do you have a high opinion of them? Or is it kind of like a, good on you, buddy. So, as you guys are giving me your responses there in the chat, hey, Drudge is here. Great to have you here, Drudge. Let me then quickly catch up with what Fabio wrote right here. Topic seems of interest. I seem to mostly realize later that I put some of myself into what I want to establish. I don't do that every time, though, of course. I've gone like, oh, this is like some things I know about. What if I leaned into it a bit more? I've written it separately from digital circus-based stuff, mostly being into the body of the vessel in Deltarune. Seems I wanted that parody and Goner, a customer character, a bit more than most. All right. And Mick says, wow, some guy he was. Oh, yes, he was. Yeah. Working at Jimmy John's, I got to work with some very interesting people. Some really weird, some really weird workers, some really great managers, like guys who were just like, they brought the energy. They were always super happy, super pumped. They elevated the atmosphere of the place, and they also stood up for any of the workers. Like whenever there was someone who tried to like give us a lip at the counter, immediately a manager was there and be all like, "Hi there, how can I help you?" And if that person gave the manager a lip, then the manager's like, "There's the door, you can leave." And it's like, oh, that's awesome. So, again, we're going to have a look at some of the clips right here, and I'm going to talk about how the writers knew what goes on. Starting off with Gangle setting up shop.
I guess I should get into manager mode and get us all kicked off. And with that out of the way, let's get to work, guys.
All right. So this little sequence right here might seem a little silly when you have so much time, when you have a limited amount of time, 22 minutes to deliver a full story. Why would you bother spending those seconds of Gangle turning stuff on? And granted, it doesn't eat up a whole lot of time, but it does take up some time. This right here grounds you as the viewer into this is real. Next time that you go out to eat, take a look at some of the machines. You will find all of the little turn-on machines. In fact, if you want to be an absolute jerk and get thrown out, you can reach over and flip one of those registers off. It's really easy. Again, I wouldn't actually try to do it, but that's absolutely something that you can do. You can find all the plugs, all of the switches, all of the buttons everywhere, usually actually within really easy grasp. And that is something that the manager must do. It's something very easy for any worker to do. However, if a normal worker does it, the manager gets in trouble, which lends itself actually to what Kane berates Gangle for at the very end of the episode, about how she left her shift early and left it in Pomni's care. Pomni can take care of everything. At this point, she just needs to shut everything down. However, it is the manager's duty to look over the big hardware. And if they don't do that, they can cause a lot of problems because of insurance, responsibility, are people treating the equipment correctly. It's a small detail, but it's one that for anyone who's worked fast food, the moment that they see that scene, immediately it grounds them in the reality, the stark, awful reality of this particular episode. And so sometimes writing what we know allows us to actually reach out to members of our audience and help them to identify with a situation or the world or a character in a way that is very relatable and feels very real, despite the fact that this is very clearly fantasy, what we see here on the screen. Fabio says, respect the hustle. Fast food's been mostly been presented to me as a job you have before your actual job or dreams. And I've heard of IRL stories like Gangle's giving up everything to stay a manager or whatever. In Gangle's case, she gave up on her dreams to feel like she's above every worker of hers as a manager. Excuse me. And that's a very good observation right there, Fabio. Nivik, why does the name Jimmy John remind me of the name Gummy Goo for some reason? They both just sound similar to me. I don't know. I'm weird. Carry on. No. Gummy Goo, Jimmy John, those illiterate names. Ooh, that just sounds great. I'm about to have a bad sneeze. If I suddenly sneeze, I do apologize, everyone. So, again, yeah, just like with Fabio right here, my mom related to this man. She's been a fast food worker before. Exactly. For anyone who's worked fast food, this scene absolutely grounds you in the reality that the story wishes to communicate. Hey, hi, Shay. Great to have you here. Andrij, you're asking what are the topics at hand today? The topic at hand today are writing what you know and also setting goals. So those will be our two topics for today. So, very simple stuff.
It looks like I've taken Ragatha and dropped her in the deep fryer.
Oh, no.
Now then. Now then. That little moment right there where Jax takes Ragatha and then throws her into the deep fryer is funny on its own, but it becomes even funnier because, again, the show just took the time to establish how, quote-unquote, real this is by showing us the mundane aspect of Gangle having to turn on everything as the manager. And what is great about Gangle's response to this is that we immediately, with Ragatha getting thrown into the deep fryer, the way that she responds immediately communicates to us that she's a bad manager. Because a good manager would obviously flip their lid really, really hard at this and be like, you are fired, which is what Jax is aiming for. However, Gangle wants to keep him there, and she's going to torture him by exercising authority over him, which is what Fabio has already brought up. So we get the grounding, we get the joke, and then we get the horrible revelation all in one go.
No. We can't have anything like that going on around here.
What are you gonna do about it, though?
I'm calling upper management.
So already, again, that's the wrong response. The right response is, get out, you're fired. No, you do not throw people into the deep fryer. Dorcas Daydreams, what have you missed? Just the first 22 minutes. Tonight we're going to be talking about writing what you know and making goals for the new year. So Gangle then calls up Kane and wants for there to be a fixed punishment for the people who do not do well on their shift. So there's that. But let's actually start getting again to some of the things that are Kane lying like an actual denture toy. All right. So here's the next thing here's another very relatable moment that I want to bring up, which is when you see people at a job like this, the regular customers that you just do not like. And when you work fast food, you definitely have those kinds of people. And the moment they strike through the door, there's like an immediate cringe on everyone's parts. It's like, no, why did they come in again? No, it's not worth taking your money to put up with you. Which is what this scene evokes, and what Gangle says is in so many words, or actually in less words, the exact things that have been said to me and to other people by our managers, not just in fast food, but also working in retail. And also when I worked one of my office jobs at Northern Arizona University, helping out students, there were students who were such problem children that would come on in, that the professors that worked with me would just be all like, oh, Lars, don't bother with them. Here, send them back to me. And then they would have a very nice, cordial conversation with that student, see that student out, and then they'd be like, this person's the absolute worst. If I could just melt off their face. And that's basically what we get right here with this scene. Hey, Art's great to have you here. Deep fried Ragatha, anyone? Yummy. Ragatha's a people pleaser, but I don't know if she's willing to go that far. Sparkling Met Pep, an absolute classic. It's a brand that more people should try. Gerard says, yeah, problematic customers are also present. Yes. Gerard says, I more thought of it as when the drive-through mic static. But yeah, problematic regular customers are also present. And Gerard, yes, the static in the mic, absolutely an issue. Woof. So here we go.
I hate this guy.
Never say you hate the customer while the customer is still here. We wait until after hours for that.
Again, and we wait for after hours or after the customer has left to start complaining, because even the managers, even the people on top, really do not like the problem customers. It's why it's always great when a good manager goes to bat for the workers and is like, no, you're a bad customer. I don't want to hear none of this. Art says, my brother worked at our local Wendy's. He only had terrible memories of his work experience. I'm so sorry I had to go through that, Arts. But yes, that is normally typical. I will admit I had an atypical experience working fast food, and that was because I had some of the best managers and coworkers a guy could ask for. And that was in part because they were the managers of that particular shop were hand selected by the CEO himself, by Mr. 300-pound Jimmy John, to go down and set up shop in Tucson. And he was like, you guys are the absolute best of the best. I'm sending you guys down. You're an absolute unit, and I want you to hire only the best and the happiest people. And so that's usually who I worked with. If someone wasn't happy, they would get sent home. So it definitely changes the experience to have amazing managers who have been picked because they are the best. And also when the managers worked with us on the line, they were amazing. And even the guys from corporate, when they would show up, they also worked with us, not just simply lording over us. And the guys from corporate, they were insanely fast. These guys were phenomenal at the register and on the line and making the bread, that it's like you could tell that these guys had risen through the ranks because they had actually earned that by working real hard. So good on them. I still would not want to spend my entire life working for a fast food joint. And actually that particular outlet fell apart once those managers moved on, because two of them, let's hear, I take back. One of them went on to become a lawyer. Good on him. One guy wanted to do something else with his life, and another got promoted elsewhere. And the one guy that was left behind after a while was like, you know what? I want to get married and have a family and do something else other than make people sandwiches. And so when all of those managers left, the place just fell apart. Susie, stop eating the frozen nuggets. Oh, wonder how long Susie and Chris from Deltarune would last in the fast food environment. Arts, now I suddenly want to have that as a fan fiction. Whether you put them into any place, any particular food venue, or you make them go to Icy's Pizza and have them work there. Wait, Jimmy John was actually all CEO and you actually met him? No, Mimic, I've never met Jimmy John because I've never important enough to actually meet the guy. The guys I worked with knew the CEO personally. And that was why they were down there, because he knew them and he was like, you guys are really amazing. I can trust you guys. I'm going to send you on down. Fabio, I wonder what this feels like. I presume that characters make these sounds, but they're like uncomfortably shoved into their minds. Maybe Jax hates, amongst other things, understanding what it says. Yeah. And it's kind of funny that we have no idea what on earth the bubble guy is actually saying. Okay. So let's see here. Let's find ourselves the next experience. Frying the burgers, not so much. I mean, there's plenty of little small things that for people who've worked within the industry would be all like, yep, I know what that's like the clock being broken and everything like that. Now then, I know we've talked about this scene before, but I want to definitely come back to it again. Is Pomni meeting Gummy Goo. Now then, depending on how you want to interpret the scene, Pomni's either flirting with Gummy Goo or is just really overjoyed to see Gummy Goo again. In either case, it is something that touches on the very real possibilities of people flirting at work, either workers flirting with each other or trying to flirt with the customers. It happens all the time. And oh boy, I've got some stories. But I shall share these stories after I catch up here with what people have written, and then we watch this scene to talk about it. Because again, this is a scene. This is a scene that the way that I look at it is very much informed by people actually having lived through those kinds of experiences. Medic, you gotta be a part of, and you gotta be a part of Camille's hair, Mr. Lars. Excellent job. You've truly made it in life. I do feel like I've made it in life. As I look over at my 3 degrees and wonder what I was doing with those. But here, as a bit of advice to anyone, at least in the States, if you're going to go to college, if you want to go for your master's degree, make sure that your master's degree is something that you absolutely need. Because going for your master's degree is soul crushing. Fabio, for some reason, I've seen something about Chris and Susie working at some fast food owned by Queen. Like, what? Go off, though. Interesting idea. Arts. Oh yeah, I'm sure someone's made that fanfic. Oh, I bet they have. But I would love to see a fanfic of Chris and Susie messing around in ices and just wrecking the place for a day as new hires. That would be amazing. He says from fast food to a harem, and not just any harem, but Camille's harem. Greatest evolution ever. Yes, I know. All right, so let's get to this scene, and then we'll talk about how relatable this actually is. Because again, this is Pomni. We know that Pomni is a human trapped in a digital game. Gummy Goo is just an NPC, and yet this just it rings so beautifully and tragically true.
Hello.
Hello, Sheila. I'll have a sausage bacon jaffle combo. And the mate here just wants 6 hash browns split between them.
Yeah, okay. Hi.
You alright, miss?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'll call your order when your name's ready, yeah.
I'll call you when your name is ready, or yeah. Now then, when I was working at Jimmy John's, because everyone had to work really, really fast. Again, you're trying to make those sandwiches in 30 seconds. It doesn't leave you a whole lot of time for flirting with the customers at the register or anywhere along the line. You just do not have that opportunity, which is probably a good thing. But when I worked in retail, oh boy, you would have the people who would come into the register lanes and try to flirt with all the cute girls working the registers. And sometimes the cute girls would be flirting right on back. And this kind of stuff absolutely would see these kinds of shenanigans go down. It fits so well, even though the experiences that I have had, again, not stuck in a video game, not talking with big gummy alligators from Australia and all that stuff. And yet it just rings so dang true. I think that at least for myself, one of the funniest, like looking back at it, it makes me cringe, but it's still one of the funniest incidents of myself, like trying to flirt at work. At my very first job, I worked in the loading docks at the University of Arizona bookstore. And part of that required not just simply unloading massive trucks of stuff and then sorting out the goods to then be sold on the bookstore sales floor, but also I would have to take items out to the store myself and deliver them to people who were too busy to go into the back to grab up stuff. One of the departments that constantly needed help getting stuff brought out to them was the Clinique counter. The Clinique counter sold all of the perfumes and makeup and the likes that the ladies on the college campus would want to make themselves look absolutely beautiful and get their man at the next college game. So That's what the Clinique counter was there for. And the Clinique counter was run by a couple of really cute girls. And so here I am, I'm the freshman, and I'm just like, cute girls, yay! I get to bring out these things to them, and so I would I would always take the opportunity while I was bringing out perfumes and makeup to talk to them and ask them how things were going, how was school doing, was anyone bothering them, and even though I don't wear makeup, tell me more about makeup. What is so great about it? What are the perfumes and the scents that you would recommend the most? And it's just all an excuse to have a longer conversation with these cute girls. But they humored me, and they all had boyfriends, which then later on, as I found out, I'm like, oh, I'm so ashamed. A guy like me would never get these kinds of girls if they're already dating someone. So there was that. But then compare that to another coworker of mine who worked on the loading docks, who also wanted to hit on all the girls. And so he would come on out there and just like throw himself at these girls and just be like, hey, there's a party tonight. You want to go to the party? Oh, I want to take you there. You look so beautiful on my arm. Oh, it'd be so great. Yeah, I think we'd make a great couple. Oh, you're dating a guy already? He doesn't need to know what's going on. I think we'd look great together. The guy ended up getting fired for aggressively flirting with too many people at work, aggressively flirting at too many customers, aggressively flirting at too many of the female workers. It got really bad. and the guy actually tried to run away when the head manager of the store came to fire him. The guy booked it because he knew he was getting the axe, and he was trying to get away before he could be verbally fired. It was just, it was so ridiculous. And then there were so he was Brock on steroids. Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. And reeking of Red Bull. You could smell this guy from like 10, 15 feet away from the amount of Red Bull this guy would guzzle. And I then found out later on that one of the reasons why so many of the girls were nice to me was because I was the one guy from the back who wasn't super creepy when he would come on out. And I'm like, oh, I was trying to flirt with all you girls, but whoopsies. Okay, so let's see what you guys have to say right here. Chris and Susie just upping Pizza Pants' headaches. Oh, yes. Oh, I want to see Chris and Susie driving Pizza Pants absolutely insane. Shade says, to become number one, you need to destroy others. No mercy, blame others for your problems, steal their ideas, take the success for your own. That's the wrong way of doing it, Shade. You will get so many enemies doing that. Probably love Gummy's friends standing there as well. And I love their little comment afterwards. I should also play that. Dorcas says, when my boyfriend and I watched this scene, he looked at me and said something along the lines of, do you see the vision now? It was then that I became a fellow Pomni Goo enjoyer. The chemistry is just right there. Fabio, in person, we don't really care about fast food workers, huh? But someone disturbs the peace. How dare? Mimic, aw, how romantic. With the skull and crossbones. Shade says, opinion about people who work from fast food. No shame what job you do. You could take care of yourself and your family, no problem, and you're not evil. And that's the thing. Fast food should not be vilified at all. It's just definitely one of those jobs that people look down on because it stereotypically normally has people who are not so well educated, stereotypically has people with bad working habits and the likes, taking care of cheap food, and that's what brings it such a bad reputation. But if you got to take care of yourself, if you got to take care of your family, whatever job puts food on the table, let them do it. There's definitely worse things you could do to make money. Jai says, my Muslim self is very triggered right now. Is it because of the fast food talk or because of the creepy talk or the Red Bull? You're going to have to explain yourself, Jiraj. Crying faces from Hannah. Fabio, I don't know. Some lady caused some chaos, and I wasn't even there. My parents were. But lady, your son being autistic doesn't let you rudely and loudly cut in line. Amen. Amen. Do not use another person's handicaps or mental state to try to take advantage of other people's. I hate that. Dorcas says this whole episode reminded my boyfriend and I of when he used to work in fast food. My favorite part about that was going over there for lunch and getting to see him. Oh, how nice. Drudge, the Red Bull didn't give him wings. That job is for management. Yes. Fabio Plus, I also am with way more confirmation than before, and we just wait like everyone else. Yeah, wait your turn. We're crying out loud, people. I hate it. I hate people who try to take advantage of again, certain handicaps, mental illness, or special accommodations. Please, no. Act respectable. When you act with respect, other people will respect you even more so when they find out about whatever you're going through. If you're autistic, ADHD, or missing a leg. When people are like, oh, wait a second, you have something going on and you still act like a normal person? Oh my gosh, I love you even more. Mimic, I'll be Burger King and you be McDonald's. I'll have it my way and you'll be loved. Oh, Mimic, why? Why? Oh, that is so awful. Wow. I'm going to have to move on after that.
Oh, wait, I forgot to ask for a kid's meal toy. You're not a kid. Oh, yeah, an adult toy then. Don't know about that one, mate. Well, can I help you?
Arts, this is a PG-rated stream, LOL. Yes, we stop at references to adult toys. Put her in jail. Put this little one in jail for creeping on the gummy alligators. We don't need any of that going on here. Oh my gosh. Let the lads have their toys. You know what I would have really loved is if they'd actually given them the toys and the toys ended up being them, or at least or were the candy princess and the fudge in miniature. That would have been hilarious. I would have loved to have seen that. All right. So when it bring this on a little bit forward to watching how Gangle reacts to all of this. So we got Gangle coming along. Where the heck is Pomni? And then speaking to Ragatha. Okay, so having certain working situations. Ragatha getting squared in the eye with the stupid sauce is funny in and of itself. But the way that she begins acting throughout the rest of the episode, while it's revealing for her character, is again great for anyone who's ever worked in this kind of a situation. Because if you've ever worked with someone who showed up to work drunk or high, Ragatha nails it. And that's happened to me. It's happened to me, unfortunately, way more times than I would have liked. Working with someone who was drunk or high at work, and just like, dude, you should have just called in, like, make up an excuse and take a sick day, for crying out loud. And don't be so stupid, because yeah, when you've got someone who's out of it, it causes all different kinds of problems. And I'll share actually one ridiculous scenario with you guys after briefly showing this next part right here.
The gummy guy, 'cause she'd rather be with an NPC than with us or something.
Oh, knock over those burgers, Ragatha.
Well, that won't do.
I wish someone would flirt with me.
So real quick about that. One time when I was working in retail, there was a guy who dropped a bottle of wine, of really cheap wine, and in the process caused a bunch of other bottles to fall over. It was a mess. This person, rather than say, "Oh, I did, I'm so sorry," and they wouldn't actually ever be charged for it either. But this person, we could see them, looked around, thought no one was looking, and shuffled off as fast as they could, and then came around another way and said, "Oh, I think there's a mess. Someone made a mess over there." Like, yeah, you made it. But so me and another worker had to go clean up this mess of spilled cheap wine. And the wine was so potent that the fumes started getting to my coworker. She got tipsy from the fumes. Like she went pale white, started staggering, and nearly threw up. She was just like, "Oh, what's going on? I gotta clean up this wine." And one of the managers came over and was like, "Oh my gosh, okay, quick break for you, Lars. You get to clean this up now." And I had to clean up all of this spilled cheap wine, and it smelled so bad. Oh my gosh. Like, I didn't get tipsy from the fumes, but I got sick from the fumes. I needed a breath of fresh air. Like, after that, I was like, I'm going out and collecting shopping carts because I needed to get out of the store. Whew. So people being tipsy, drunk, high at work, absolutely a thing. And sometimes weird stuff happens. But yeah, also the same guy, the same Red Bull guy who got fired for hitting on too many people. He once came to work drunk. Oh boy, that was an experience. He just one of the managers just crammed him into a corner and told him to shut up and stay there. It should have just sent him home. So let's hear. Fabio says, "I don't know about that one, mate. Why did I not realize the full context here? Oh, the Portuguese dub made it subtler. Specifically Japanese, not Japanese, specifically Brazilian Portuguese, the Brazilian dub." Gerard says, "I have an unrelated question. How would you write about a liminal space similar to the back rooms? I'm working on one, and it's hard to get a plot going without it becoming a plain description." Gerard, let me put a quick pin in that. I'll come back to that in just a moment. So Meg says, "Me too, Ragatha, me too. Tipsy from the fumes? Dang. Jeez, it must have been horrible, Lars." Yeah, it was something else. I remember I got back home after that experience. I was like, yeah, my coworker got drunk on the fumes. So my mom was like, "Oh, that must have been some bad wine. Really bad wine." I'm like, yeah, whew. And that was fun in that job. I actually got to know the wine and alcohol manager really well, who managed that part of the store. I don't drink alcohol, but I'd ask him about it, and he would give me some tips about what kinds of stuff would taste well, what would go well with certain kinds of meals, what was worth your buck, and everything. And again, it was really funny because I don't drink alcohol, but he and I would just have these conversations about this. And it was actually something that helped me for some of my other stories to actually then competently write characters drinking alcohol, because that's not something I've ever lived. That's not one of my own experiences. So what is that then like for someone else? Working with a guy whose job it was to sell and recommend alcohol actually really helped me out. So again, writing what you know. You don't have to know it yourself personally sometimes, but accruing that gaining that information can help you become just a better author. Hey, ISO, great to have you here. Let's see here. Fabio wrote, but yeah, that seems to be a trend in our dubs. Sometimes making insults weaker, other times subtle adult jokes are made even less perceptible in wording. Very interesting. It says, "That's just sad, bro." George, damn, these edibles ain't it. Like, what? Art says, I worked in a grocery store for 9 years. I've had a few characters. We had a lady who wanted her groceries in banana boxes. Wow. Okay, I kind of know what that's like, Arts, but never banana boxes. She'd slap your hand if you didn't organize them the right way. Yes, I know exactly those kinds of people. They were very frustrating to deal with, but they always came in. They were usually the regular shoppers. You're like, oh, why? I was already high on life from the moment I was born, so I don't really need drugs or alcohol to have fun and be crazy. Amen. I don't need that stuff to let loose. I've already told you guys some of my dancing stories. There's a whole lot more. You don't need to get me drunk to have a good time. All right, but coming back to what Drudge asked about writing stories with liminal spaces. Here's what. So, Drudge, I don't have a whole lot of experience with that, but what I would recommend is think about the characters. Think about the characters that you want to put this experience through. What would it be like for them to go into one of those like backroom spaces? What would it be like to find yourself in an infinite hall of supplies? What would it be like to open up a door and find yourself in a dark, corroding, nasty room that shouldn't exist, but does, and either has some weird, horrible monster in it or some weird, horrible secrets? How would someone respond to that? Think first about the characters. Think about who someone is that you have in mind and what's going to happen to them when they go into that back space. What is their experience going to be? And from their perspective, you can start describing it. And that would be where I would start. Since I myself have not actually written any kind of story like that, I can only give you what I think would be an interesting way to approach it. So you can you have all kinds of freedom, in my opinion, freedom to do all these interesting things, and possibility can sometimes be debilitating. And so if you don't want to feel completely overwhelmed, you bring it back in and you focus on a character or characters who will go into that space. And I think that might help you figure it out a little bit better. Fabio says the expressiveness, the Amazing Digital Circus is the best with all the character designs they got. Shade says, brother, what is wrong with the people in your countries? There are some very interesting characters. I don't want to know what's led them to these points. Art says she was very particular about how her cans were organized and even show me how to do it. LOL. Yeah, no, I know what that's like. And just like, okay, if this is what you want. There was one lady who would insist on everything being double bagged in paper bags, and you could only put in 4 items at most into every double paper bag. It was a lot. And she would always buy tons of stuff. And then we'd had to make sure that we organized everything in such a way in all these paper bags so that way her produce wouldn't get crushed. And it wouldn't be crushed. And man, it made her checking out always like a little Tenga tower monstrosity of precariously balancing all these bags. Shay says, listen, if you want to write something like the backrooms, I recommend you to close all your doors and your windows and stay in darkness. It will help you and send some experience. Great advice there, Shade. If you do know, how do I create a liminal space that isn't too reminiscent of the backrooms? That's my biggest issue. So being someone who hasn't really watched a lot in regards to the back rooms, it's not something I'm very familiar with. I myself can't exactly say what you could do in a way that makes it not be the back rooms. I can just tell you how I might just and this is me literally just right now pulling this off the top of my head. Thinking, Tenga, yes, Jenga. Thank you, Dorcas. It is Jenga. Thank you for correcting me there. Thinking about my experiences in really weird spaces in other buildings. So, like at the high school, where there was an unused storage area, in the creepy back corner of Albertsons, where there was no security camera, or the eternal hallway of leftover stuff at an unused school. I like just thinking about those as kind of being like the template for these forgotten spaces. It would be like if I were to go into, let's say, the eternal hallway of forgotten stuff at an abandoned school. Eventually, walking along that hallway, getting to the point where I begin asking myself, "Wait a second, shouldn't this hallway have ended by now?" And it's like looking around and realizing that's like nothing quite looks familiar. All the doors that I see are locked. Or maybe I open them up and it opens up into something really awful. I'm like, oh, shut that. And I start running back and I actually can't, even though I'm running back the way I came, can't find a way out and kind of find myself in like some weird eternal loop of just space. Like, why does it exist? Like that's kind of what immediately pops into my head. Or for like the creepy corner that Albertsons didn't have a security camera on. There was a washing area there, and I can imagine that if you pulled up the drain and looked down in there, you could probably find a space where some weird sludge monster has been growing there for who knows how many years. So in order, I think, to get yourself into that mindset of writing these liminal spaces, you do have to either shut yourself into a really dark place or go and explore some places that are not really all that fun. If you know where to go, you could probably even find old abandoned nuclear sites. I went to one myself, an abandoned nuclear site that was not properly cordoned off. And you could just walk down into this pit, into an abandoned building deep underground, and look through these old creepy rooms. There was no lights, it was all torn apart, very dangerous to be in. And you could definitely write a good horror story out of that little experience. George, I sure did derail the convo. Anyways, proceeds to derail further. Again, writing liminal spaces is something I'm not myself very acquainted with. But again, go and have those experiences of finding weird, creepy spaces. You will find them. You will find them in various buildings, and let that be an inspiration. Get you asking questions, wondering where you might go with this or with that. And that might help you then figure out how you can create your own version of the back rooms that isn't a direct copy of the back rooms. So with that being said, let's then get back to this. Another moment that is very that feels very real from this latest episode of the Amazing Digital Circus, that I'm like, yes, someone has definitely gone through this in order to write this, because it just feels way too real. So here we go.
Mommy, we need you on the register. Stop weirding the customers out.
But it's gummy goo. Can't the job wait a bit? It's not like this is real.
And next you're gonna say my authority isn't real. Anyway, put away that breakfast menu because it's lunchtime.
All right. So that scene right there, for anyone who's worked with a bad manager, someone who likes to wield their authority, and they see something where they feel like it's not going the way that they want it, because that's usually the way it is. Most workers are actually working within the bounds of what the company demands. But there are managers who feel like workers aren't doing what they want them to do. And so a manager who is kind of high on their power, like Gangle is in this particular instance, will come on very strong and actually will make certain situations way weirder and way worse by interjecting. Usually a good manager, if they see something that isn't really good, but isn't necessarily being too disruptive or too damaging, they will let that worker dig their own hole and then afterwards be like, okay, then. So I saw you were doing this. Remember, we expect you to act a certain way with the customers and with your fellow employees. There are certain things you need to be doing. Make sure that you are adhering to the rules and regulations and our expectations. Don't let that happen again. That's what a good manager does. A bad manager, like what Gangle unfortunately is in this episode, interjects and makes things really weird. And if someone doesn't immediately comply or pushes back, talks back, then it becomes a power struggle. You think my authority isn't real? I was like, yeah, you've got authority over me right now as a manager, but honestly, like once I leave or if I quit or if you fire me, your power over me is largely diminished. Sure, you can write a really bad review for me or something like that. You might not give me a good recommendation in the future, but your power over me is actually very limited. So yeah, you don't have any real power here. And most bad managers know that. And so it makes them even more insecure about their position. It's a very interesting loop. And so this scene right here captured that really, really well. I would love to know if Gooseworks ever worked in fast food and in retail, or if anyone who's been working with her also has had those experiences, because some of the scenarios, some of the dialogue and everything is just too on point. So let's see here. Let's see here. There's one other one that I want to get to as far as relatability and weird experiences that actually we can use this one. Oh boy. I pull the volume up again for this one right here.
Does this count as a bus?
Are you ready to order?
No thanks. I got this bowl of cereal.
Okay, so the whole bowl of cereal thing, this lets me know that someone on the staff, on the writing staff, has actually been a part of, has worked in fast food, because this happens where you're taking people's orders, and then someone comes on in with food from the outside, from some other venue, or they brought in their own food, and begins to set up shop. And there's some restaurants that get really anal about that. I personally feel like that's not a big issue, because you do have a public open space. They're only paying for your food, not for a place to sit, unless it's a fine dining experience. So normally I don't get really upset about it. But back when I was working at Jimmy John's, there were those people who would come on in with their own food and begin just taking up the place and make things a little bit weird and difficult for the other customers. Or they would come on in with their own cups, and they would go and they would start filling up their cups without paying to use the vending machine. And you'd be like, that's, if you want to, you can pay for that because that's a service we're providing, but please. And then you just be like, no, everything's fine. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. It's just like, the way you're acting tells me this is most definitely not fine and that you've been thrown out before. You need to stop. No, everything's fine. That's what this whole cereal incident really just it captures. It captures it so dang well. Minnie says, imagine finding a very clean hallway or room that looks brand new inside of a building that's clearly supposed to be abandoned, left behind. Now that's really horrifying. Yes, that is. Shade says, what? This is your real life? Not joking, right? Yes, this is real life. Fabio, the bowl of cereal bit seemed realistic for sure, and I think some people wouldn't see it that way, eh? Oh, that hit. The moment I saw that, I just started laughing the first time. It's like, yes, that is real. That is so real. I would have loved to see it. I would have loved to have seen someone do that with a bowl of cereal. Usually, it was with like fries or a sandwich. The Amazing Gamer says, I like how the glowing queen eats the cereal and then has the decency to regurgitate it as she's placing her order. And says, real life is goofy as hell. Yep, that is so true. So continuing on with that.
Well, there's a line of people behind you.
300 cheeseburgers for all my precious spawn.
Is that for here or to... Can you hold on for just a second?
All right. So real quick with that. Again, anyone who's worked retail or in restaurants will know that person who just comes sweeping on in and is going to demand service immediately. With the glowing queen is very different because she's not pushing away the line. She's literally devoured the line. But this is, again, something that absolutely happens. The very pushy, in-your-face customers. Which, here's the thing. As actually what happens with the glowing queen, she's actually not too rude about it. She's just, I'm a mom who needs the food now. And later on, when Pomni's like, I've learned way more about the reproduction of glowings than I ever wanted to know. Oh boy, the friendly, pushy people are the ones who are going to tell you way too much information. So again, yeah, that works really, really well. Drudge says, as a person just out of 9th grade, hey, no problem with you being a minor there, Drudge. We respect everything you do. Also, it's actually way more impressive, your art skills and your writing skills, knowing that, good on you. Not just that someone just out of 9th grade, retail looks like a place where random things go down and you just endure it like some survive the disasters type game. Drudge, you are 100% on point. Yes. So yeah, not too rude about it, devouring other customers. Exactly. This is the glowing queen right here. Her version of pushiness is going to be a little bit more brutal than most other people's. But she could have been a Karen about it. And she wasn't, so good on her. Or it's like someone coming into McDonald's with a Subway sandwich. Yes, yeah, it's like that. You're like, sure, you can do that, but read the room where you're at. If you're here to meet friends and you didn't want to eat McDonald's, then I totally understand that. Otherwise, don't just walk in and be all like, no, I'm eating something else other than what you guys sell. I mean, I just talked about that lady rudely skipping the whole line. Hey, would have preferred the glowing queen. Yeah, she would have eaten the whole line. Look at that. Made life easy. Mimic person, this is fine. As the person says as they eat breakfast while their neighbor and house is completely on fire and everyone is panicking and screaming bloody murder. Yes. Fabio, and we know we just spat back out, front or back, whatever. Shade says, I have a question for everybody. If we imagine the digital circus as a real world, not as a simulation, how would you think the world welding would work? How would the world welding will work and everything? How would you think the world welding will work and everything? Interesting question. Drudge, why eat with a clown when you can dine with a king? The best possible campaign for Burger King I just came up with. Oh my gosh, that's great. Holy cow. You know what, Drudge, take that to Burger King and make a buck. They would absolutely buy that campaign slogan off of you. Shade, no, this is a problem society. We need to stop it. This is not normal. Stop normalizing crazy people are not normal. Normal crazy people are just part of the norm. When you get around and see the world, you realize crazy people are everywhere. There's just no escaping them. But then again, she did tell Uzi, Via, and Sin to leave the poor victim in the back alone. Yes, good on her. Yeah, I think that Shay did mean the world building in this regard. What did you think of the world? How do you think the world building will work and everything? So, the Amazing Digital Circus as its own entity. Again, if we think of it as a real world, not as a simulation, then we already then realize that this is a world where physics are very different, where creatures are very different, where you have silicon-based in creatures, not just oxygen-based creatures. So all of the rules go out the window. It would be a very bizarre place for us to live in. I can guarantee you that. They've done something similar. Something like, who would you trust, the clown or the king? You know what? I used to really like Burger King, but now their fries and their burgers are just not up to the standards I remember as a kid. Plus, on top of that, I actually have a hard time eating most fast foods anymore. Because of medication I had to take as a teen for acne, made it so that my body has a really hard time dealing with oils. And so a lot of processed oils just do not sit well with my stomach. And so fast food, although many times tasty, is just not worth the stomach cramps. Or it says, forget the normal rules, that's for sure. Death would work differently for different types of organisms. Yes. Explaining how the creatures would work, how they function. They use magical technology. Well, they might be using some magical technology. Thus far, actually, within the Spudsies episode, like, they function fairly normally, which is one of the things that makes this episode just so weird. Let's see here. There is... Yeah, here we go. All right, here comes the next scene that I really wanted to find. We'll talk about this one, and then we'll start transitioning over to talking about we'll begin the transition towards talking about goals, but I'll use this last scene to like really start cementing what I want to get the point across when it comes to using what you know to tell a story. So here we go.
Jax! The bathroom looks like a biohazard and needs a good scrubbing.
Well, I don't know. Shouldn't, Biohazard crew take care of that?
Oh, Jaxie boy! Don't you want to be a model employee?
No, I don't care about any of this.
Well, that doesn't really sound like a can-do attitude to me.
It's not.
Bad!
I like you better when you're sad.
Well, maybe you just need some more training.
All right. Okay. So with this particular scene, there's a lot going on in this scene where for people who have worked with bad managers, they'll realize some of the telltale signs right here. But I actually want to focus on Gangel's thing of like how the bathroom looks like a biohazard. Most fast food places would like to claim that they can keep their bathrooms relatively clean. Now then, I have done my fair share across multiple jobs of cleaning bathrooms. Let's see here. I think I've had 5 jobs where bathroom cleaning was part of the job description. So that's quite a bit. I have cleaned a lot of bathrooms. And here's the thing, talking about like biohazards, if for some jobs there are actual things that you need to know when it comes to cleaning up certain areas, there are certain biohazards that you have to treat, and they have to treat very differently. And if you don't, it can get you into a whole lot of trouble. It can also get your employer into a ton of trouble. And I'm pretty certain I've shared this particular story before on a live stream, but I'll share it again for those who haven't heard it. It's just such a fun, gory story for those who have. When I worked for the city of Flagstaff, cleaning up parks and public areas, There was one incident where we went back to do an end of day check on the bathrooms that were most visited in the city. And one of the bathrooms that we went to go check to make sure that there was still enough toilet paper and that it was clean enough in there. And when we got there, it was locked. And so we just knocked to see if just in case no homeless person had fallen asleep on the toilet. And just like, hey, clean it, like maintenance is here, just checking in. If you're doing your business, just wrap it up. And this guy started calling out. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And he came on out. This super zoused drunk guy came out covered in blood. And somehow he had just the most explosive nosebleed that you could ever imagine. Think like anime nosebleed, like when someone's like, oh my gosh, pretty girl, nosebleed. Now imagine if those anime nosebleeds with the gushers was real. That was this experience. This guy had wads of toilet paper crammed up his nose. His nose was bulging from toilet paper being shoved in. And it was all just down his face in this nasty muck. And the entire bathroom was coated in blood. There was no space other than the ceiling that wasn't coated. It was sprayed. It was slapped. It was sloshed all over the place. And we were all like, you need to go to the doctors now. We're all, like, that was our very first concern. Like, you need to get to the doctors now. You've lost way too much blood. And this drunk guy's like, no. And he stumbled off and tried to run away from us. And so we're like, oh my gosh. We're like, what do you do? We're like, what do we do with this? And so one guy, he called up our managers to like try to figure out like what on earth is going, like what should we do in this situation? What we were told is you have to clean the bathroom. They did not believe us when they said how bloody it was. No one else wanted to go in there. And I'm like, I want to go home, and we can't go home until this gets done. And so like, I actually needed a biohazard suit. When Jack says, shouldn't the biohazard team take care of it? In a situation like that, you need someone in a full suit to go in and clean up this place. They didn't have that. And so I went in there and just cleaned. I just like put on gloves and put my shirt over my mouth and nose because we didn't have any facial protection. And I was like, all right, here we go. And just started cleaning up this place. And finally, like 20 minutes later, one of our managers showed up to see what was going on. He saw what was happening. He was like, oh my gosh. And he was like, well, you shouldn't have done that. But we don't have anything else that we could have actually like cleaned that up with. Like, unless we brought a power cleaner and just had someone then with like a full mask and goggles on so no blood came back in their face and just sprayed the place out. That would have been the only other thing that they could have done because they actually did not have any biohazard cleaning material that we could have used. So I had to clean up this drunk guy's blood that was literally all over the place. I wish I had taken a picture just to show how bad it was. So like when I watch something like Carrie where they like pour blood on her and they're like, ha ha ha, I'm like, yes, I know. Like, I have never had blood poured on me like that, but like, I know what that looks like because I've seen a guy absolutely just and had to clean up afterwards. So when watching this particular scene from the Amazing Digital Circus, I'm like, yeah. The show kept it PG and did not go anywhere near the PG-13 levels or rated R levels of what they could have shown. That like, if someone's all like, no, that's way too over the top, I'm like, oh, you have not seen what I have seen. I have seen, like, and that's just one awful, nasty bathroom experience. There was once one experience, this is also in Flagstaff, where some ladies decided to take used diapers from their children after a baseball game and tried to plug up all of the sinks in the bathroom, in the women's bathroom. And it was awful. It was so bad. We did take pictures for that one, and we passed it along so that way that team would be penalized, if not outright banned, from ever playing baseball in the city again because of what their fans had done. Like, it was so bad. Like, that's not okay. So the whole comment, it's meant to be funny of like, oh, it looks like a biohazard. But for those who have worked in awful situations before, when they say the bathroom looks like a biohazard, that will probably give them a little bit of PTSD and be like, yes, I know what a biohazard bathroom looks like. Oh, boy. Arts, guy, I fear being drenched in blood after your description of what happened to that bathroom stall. Oh, it was so bad. Oh, it's so bad. Yeah, I honestly would not wish that on anyone because it was such an awful situation. And also finding all of the used diapers plugging up sinks, that also was shocking. I was like, really? Normally it's the men's restroom that is an awful mess, but the women's restroom was just, it was nasty. They must have lost the game or something. And you just got a bunch of angry moms taking out their frustration on the facilities rather than screaming profanities at the kids. Neither one is a good option. Don't do either. Let's see here. I says, I have those kinds of nosebleeds every other month. It's a combination of high blood pressure and a physical injury to a surface level vein in my nose. Yeah, these are things that can indeed happen. And unfortunately, that man's situation was not made any better by the fact that he was drunk. And we probably should have pinned him down and called an ambulance to get that guy carted away. We actually, in that same job, one of my coworkers saved a guy from choking to death on his own vomit. We found there were a bunch of drunks in the park, and one of them puked and fell backwards and began drowning in his own vomit. And all of his drunk buddies didn't do anything to help him out. One of my coworkers ran over, pulled the guy up, and brought him back and resuscitated him, and called an ambulance to come and get the guy. And all of these drunks began attacking him. He was like, no, he can't go back to prison. And he's like, I'm not putting him back in prison. I'm just trying to save him. Oh, man. Working for the city of Flagstaff, I came across so many nasty instances. Someone had a bad day. Oh, yes. Oh, Arts. Oh, I'm so sorry you had to deal with that in the handicapped stall, covered not in blood but poo. Oh, why? Mimic, my dad was a custodian and also cleaned bathrooms too, particularly the school bathrooms. According to him, apparently the girls' bathroom was much worse than the boys' bathroom. Oh, wow. What girls are attending that school? Yeesh. The school I was in before stopping turned out to have messier girls' bathrooms than preferable, apparently. Schools are a whole other thing. And things changed. And bro, you can choke on your own vomit? What the F? Yes. Yeah. That's why being sick that way isn't a whole lot of fun. That stall got a lot of Windex. Oh, I hope so. And also a bunch of bleach. Ugh. Yeah, no, situations like that, you're just like, oh man, bad customers. So one of the reasons why I feel like custodians should get more pay than they usually do, because they have to put up with so much from people. You got so many inconsiderate people, and then you got some people who are just sick, and it's not a problem of their own. Like, again, for the drunk guy with the nosebleed, that man had no intention of losing half of his bodily fluids in the bathroom. I guarantee it. But yeah, I should have been paid extra for cleaning up that mess. TV account, I'm back. What did I miss? Oh, TV account, you just came back in at the worst time. In short, we've been going through moments from the Amazing Digital Circus, and I've been sharing my experiences that line up with a lot of the moments in this particular episode, and so have others as well. We also talked about writing liminal spaces, like the back rooms. Jared says, I'll be back at 2:10, but I don't know if the stream will close then. We'll see. So I'm going to take the wheel here and begin shifting gears, which I know you actually shift with the gear shift, but hey, I can drive stick shift. Actually, I can drive stick shift. A lot of other people can't. I'm very proud of that fact. So, so let me step away from using the Amazing Digital Circus and just talk about, again, writing what you know. So when it comes down to writing what you know, Gooseworks did not get sucked into a video game, as far as any of us knows, and lived out a massive existential crisis with a bunch of jerk characters from knockoff Toy Story. However, Gooseworks and other people who worked on the script with her most likely have worked in fast food or in retail, because many of those instances in that episode, like I tried to show, are things that I can immediately identify with because I've had those experiences. When we talk about writing what you know, you're able to write a lot based off of your experiences. Your imagination will take you to amazing worlds, to digital worlds, to worlds full of dragons, to worlds where people walk on their hands and talk with their feet, to worlds that are made of slime and jello, and people eat raw meats. Like, weird things. Your imagination can take you anywhere, and you can do anything with it. When you write what you know, that's when you actually start bringing in the more realistic elements, or let's say the more realistic elements of your story. And so, for instance, coming back to the people are all like, oh, the writers of the Rings of Power are awful because they didn't live through the stuff that J.R.R. Tolkien did. They got it wrong. Anyone can write a great fantasy story, given enough effort and time and practice and editing. You can do it. What makes Tolkien's work of Lord of the Rings work so well is because when he starts talking about the very real stuff, about Frodo's PTSD afterwards and needing to find healing, he can write that as someone who went through awful experiences that destroyed men. I guarantee that Tolkien experienced PTSD as well. Now, I've talked about this before in another video about how he captured the element of coming home from war so well with the hobbits, how it changed all of them. Sure, Merry and Pippin are like the great warriors who go still on fantastic quests here and there afterwards, but the wars changed them. They are no longer just the silly, funny, sweet hobbits that they once were. They have seen some stuff. They are warriors now. They've become battle-hardened, battle-tested, and they are more prone to action than any other hobbits. Frodo actually becomes way more gentle as a result of his experience in war. Frodo in the Fellowship of the Ring is willing to get violent. After the Fellowship of the Ring, Frodo becomes less and less violent and way more considerate of other people because of the things that he's experienced. And Tolkien is able to capture how war changes people. And when you think about what he puts in there, it makes total sense because that's what he experienced. But other people can write that as well, and it will still hit well. They can still capture it, and they can capture it based off of learning from the experiences of others, doing their research, reading what other people have written to get a feel for how they can also write those kinds of character moments and the introspection and everything that comes with it. If you yourself haven't experienced something yourself, you can still gain that experience by listening and talking to others, by reading what others have written and what they have to say. You can then borrow those experiences and transform them into your own through your story. And for instance, your own experience in a job will allow you to understand how certain people think, what kinds of challenges come along, what kinds of annoying and hilarious characters are out there in the world. And then you're able to realize, oh, like everyone knows this kind of a person. Like, for instance, and this is kind of actually this is an awful example, or say an example of an awful person, but in my Legend of the Ten Lords series, there's a character whose name is Gary, who is absolutely awful. And what I tell people is that everyone knows a Gary. And I guarantee everyone has met someone like my character Gary. And when I say that, it's because Gary is just this very despicable person who believes that he's owed attention and love. He is the nice guy taken to the darkest of places. And everyone knows a creep like that. Someone who watches other people, who's like, if only they would invite me over to eat with them. Oh, they would then know how amazing I am. Like, that's creepy, right? You don't really like thinking about that kind of a person. But everyone knows someone like that. Another thing is that other people will know of others who are very outgoing, who are genuinely fun and encouraging and nice people. And then you've also met other people who wear a facade, who act all nice, like Ragatha, but aren't necessarily the best of people once you take away that mask. So by having your own lived experiences, you get to know these different kinds of people, and you can then put those people into your stories. They might be main characters, they might be side characters. But when we talk about writing what you know, you're including your experiences, and you're making your experiences become something interesting, something unique, based off of the adventure, the fantasy, the sci-fi, the fiction that you incorporate into those experiences. So TV account says right here, Brian is shut in with autism and bad people skills and terrible case of escapism. I doubt I have anything great from my experiences. TV account, that's the wrong attitude to have, because your experiences can be amazing. They really can be. Combined with your own imagination, you can do some really incredible things. So for instance, I actually have in one of my books, I haven't yet published this book, but it's a scene that I enjoyed putting in this one detail of where you have a character who's imagined that they could fight a certain way, that they were really cool in a certain way. And they've imagined it for so long. And then when they have that moment, they're like, yes. And so they're doing their cool thing as they're fighting against this other person. And then they get punched. And then they're all like, oh, that I did not expect that. I didn't imagine that. And that is something that I think way more people can actually identify with. I do believe, TV account, that you've had many experiences where you've imagined something again and again and again about how a certain scenario might play out, how you would act in a certain way if you could do it your way or do it differently. And when you, for instance, write a story that just has like that one little scene in it, I guarantee that tons of people will immediately identify with it because so many people have felt that way too. And, or even just like the feeling of like, oh, I'm really awkward. I don't have great people skills. So many people feel that way. If you can write a character who feels that way, people will believe it. People will resonate with it. You are taking your actual experience and you're bringing it into a character or into a scene. You don't have to base an entire story off of something that you yourself have lived. My book, Sandwich Desperados, which is based on my time as a Jimmy John's sandwich delivery driver, is unique in how much of it is inspired by actual experiences. However, most of my other stories, which I would argue are way better than Sandwich Desperados, also have moments of my own lived experiences in there. Little moments or little side characters or moments for those characters. And that's what it means to write what you know. People too often take that statement of write what you know and turn it actually into a way of degrading other people's work. Because again, they would tell you, TV account, you don't know enough. You haven't lived enough. Therefore, you can't write it. Well, I say kvach. I say kvach to that. That's a bunch of bologna sandwich. Because you don't need to have lived some amazing, rich, awesome, over-the-top life to tell great stories. Sure, people like Ernest Hemingway could write that way. However, Ernest Hemingway is like one in a million. And there are so many other authors out there who have created great moments, great stories, great characters based on some of their own experiences. And those people didn't even live 1/100th of the adventures that Ernest Hemingway did. And their stories still resonate with people. So when you write what you know, writing what you know is writing from your own experiences, drawing on that to make your characters feel real, or to make scenes feel real, or to draw inspiration for certain things that you can do. And if you don't know something, again, you can learn about it. You can research it. You can read what other people have done, and you can borrow from their experiences to create those moments for your own stories. So when we talk about writing what you know, if you don't know something, you can figure it out. And you don't need to know everything to write. And that's why I really wanted to talk about this, because unfortunately too many people now take that saying as a way of putting people down. But it shouldn't be. It absolutely should not be. They are guaranteed to know one, eh? Oh, yeah. If I says, Steve, I'm sure you've seen people represent their own experiences in that way out there, comics, whatever. Exactly. Again, people are able to draw on so many different experiences to make something that is relatable. Even if you feel like no one could ever relate to you, or that you haven't lived enough, trust me, you've lived enough to tell a great story. Anyone has. 5-year-olds. What is a 5-year-old usually experienced? And yet 5-year-olds can tell you some amazing stories. So trust me, you know enough, you've lived enough that you can start writing a great story. It's going to take still a lot of time, effort, and editing, but you can do it. Art says, I suppose that's why I relate to Des and her guitar. I had a piano teacher who taught me rhythm with his guitar. Good memories. Yeah, I like that. And again, you can write stuff out there that you might not think really resonates with other people, but I guarantee some of the stuff that you put out there, people will resonate with, because they're like, oh, that feels or sounds a whole lot like me. Like my own experiences, again, with learning music, or going out there and trying to make friends and feeling super awkward, or getting a job and working with these kinds of ridiculous people, or just, I wonder what it would be like if I could have that. So many stories speak to those thoughts, those desires, and those memories and experiences. So that's what I hope to really communicate. Writing what you know is great, and what you don't know, you can still learn. And if you feel like you don't know enough, trust me, you already know plenty. Your experience, every single one of you, is different from someone else and can be used to write a phenomenal book. So that's all I got to say about that. I need to quickly take a drink, and then we will talk about making goals. Good water. Okay, so let's shift gears here. Let's talk about setting up some goals. So, it's the New Year's, and not everyone sets goals or resolutions for themselves in the new year. I normally set way too many goals for myself, but let's have a look at this. Let's see what you can learn from this in order to make some good goals for yourself to help yourselves improve as creators and as storytellers, because that's what Camille's Harem is all about. Yeah, sure, we share lots of stories, lots of experiences. We talk about great shows, great books, and movies. But at the end of the day, all of that is to help all of us become better creators, better storytellers. And one of the best ways of doing that is to set actual goals that we can pursue and achieve. And setting goals is a skill in and of itself. However, it's a skill that is easier to learn than you might think, but you need to put into practice in order to do it. Mimic says, yeah, any scenario in a book, movie, comes from somewhere. Any experience a character has could be someone else's actual experience in real life. TV account, I feel like if I write from my experiences, it would end up being a rant story. LOL. TV account, there's absolutely a market for that. And sure, maybe the first draft ends up being a little bit more ranty. However, you can end up transforming that into something really compelling and interesting. Arts, example of a lame resolution. I will type one sentence right now. Congratulations, you succeeded. But have you really improved? As we are going to see. So, goal setting. Goal setting should be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. Yes, it's just that easy. Specific, we want to have specific goals, like write a sentence right now. It needs to be measurable. Hey, I will write one sentence. It is timely. I'll write it right now. Is it achievable? Yes. Is it realistic? Yes. But is it a goal that helps you grow? Because one sentence is so dang easy that it really does not help to make that kind of a goal, as we will go and see. But making goals is as easy as this. So, first off, let's take a measure. You need to take a measure of yourself. And this is something I know I've talked with some people who deal with ADHD, and hey, each day is its own adventure. And when you know that, then hey, that's good. But still, you want to document yourself. How have you been doing with writing? What is your schedule like? How much are you able to write? What's distracting you? What's motivating you? Who can you rely on to help you reach your goals? It's good to make a record of all of these things. And, okay, I'll try and make 2 sentences. Huzzah! What you want to do is you want to, again, take stock of yourself. What are you capable of? What can you do? What is filling your life that might take away some of your time? How much time do you have? All these things. What's distracting you? And when you lay it out like that, it helps you to come to terms with what you can do. It's so easy to say, I will write a book. Okay, then. First of all, what kind of a book are you writing? But also, do you have the time to write that book? Do you have the means of writing that book? Are there things that are distracting you, or things that you need to do in order to make this book happen? That is what it means to take measure of yourself. If you don't do that, it's so easy to come up with even realistic goals, but then fall short of them because you didn't take stock of what you yourself were capable of doing. So that's an important thing to know. You can even think about this from a kind of an athletics perspective. You can say, I want to run a mile. Almost anyone can run a mile, but being able to run a mile might take more work for some people than it does for others. And when you're honest with yourself about that, you can then take the steps necessary to be able to run a mile. It might take you a long time to get there, but you can do it. And it's the same thing for writing. Anyone can write a book, but it's going to take some work to set yourself up in order to achieve that. Mimic says it's the same thing when it comes to making the characters themselves too. Some authors will make characters based on the likeness, features, and or personalities of people they know in real life. Yep, again, drawing from our experiences. Now then, after you've taken measure of yourself, we need to get specific. So don't just say, I want to write more, or I want to get better, or I want people to like my work, or I will become famous. Those are not specific. Those are wishes, but there's really no substance to them. These are very subjective and nearly impossible to measure. A specific goal is something that can be measured. And it's very easy as well to get discouraged when you just tell yourself one of these kinds of very lofty goals, and then you're not able to accomplish them, and you're like, well, I'm worthless then. Instead, what you want to do is you want to set goals like, I will write a page a day, which is far more than writing 2 sentences or 1 sentence. Or I will make my dialogue more natural and the characters sound more like themselves. Or I will have so much interaction in my story. Or I will sell X number of copies. Now then, the third one right there, I'll have so much interaction in my story, is still a little bit subjective and maybe hard quite to quantify. However, it's something where you could say, I'm going to have, like, when you realize, oh my gosh, I don't actually have any, like, really good dialogue moments, you can then say, okay, I will write 3. In the next week, I will write 3 moments where characters are actually talking with each other. Hooray. That makes it a whole lot easier to now gauge how well you're doing. So having a specific goal allows you to also measure yourself, which is important. Because because here's the thing, whether you succeed or you fail, you're then able to measure how you're doing, and you can then grow from there. It's a whole page? Lars, what sorcery is this? Hey, I know. There's some people who have a hard time writing a page a day. For some people, it's more like, I just need to be able to write a paragraph a day. And if that's where they're at that moment, well, that's fine. But be specific and make sure that your goal can help you grow over time. Team account. So it's a lot how I experimented with working on a chap in my comic. I gave myself 2 weeks. Exactly. Having something very specific that you can measure yourself against or really will help you grow. So measurable goals. By making specific goals, it makes it so much easier to measure yourself, your progress, and the steps you need to make them achievable. Whether it is by setting aside the right amount of time, setting dates to go to conventions and to talk to people, or word count goals, you need to have something that can be measured. Now, one thing that is essential to make measurable goals is to have people who will keep you accountable. It's not just enough to rely on yourself. Have others there to support and check in on you. They can give you gentle reminders, they can give you encouragement, they can give you advice and incentives to keep you going. Back in the very early days of Camille's Harem, when we were all able to meet together as a group, we would have our writing goals that we would write so much by the end of the week. When we met up again, and if we met that goal, we got to eat an ice cream sandwich. If we didn't meet that goal, then we would have an ice cream sandwich smashed into our face, which was tasty and funny, but also kind of embarrassing. The worst thing was that one time we didn't properly thaw out the ice cream sandwiches, and so when we went to stuff one into Jed's face, we ended up more like bludgeoning him with an ice cream sandwich. Oh, that was a good night. Nick says, I will make my character Rebecca less of a Mary Sue and more of a damsel in distress. That is a goal that can be very easily measured. It might take a lot more work to make Rebecca less of a Mary Sue and more of a damsel in distress, depending on what you've written so far, but that is a goal. And it's a goal that is measurable. It's a goal that's achievable. Arts, I like a book where you get a free personal pan pizza once a month from Pizza Huts. Ooh. Oh, man, I love those years, man. Yeah. I remember back when the local library would have reading challenges, and you would document how much you've been reading, and depending on how, like, they had this awesome fantasy map that you had to fill in with how much you've been reading. And if you had met like the ultimate goal of so many like books or pages read by the end of the summer, then you got to like be a part of like the Knights party and stuff like that. That was some fun times. I want to be a kid again. Arts, I was never more excited to go to the library, read 5 books, get a pizza. Amen. See, we need to have more experiences like this because kids need to read more books. Literacy is going down. I don't like it. What's the T in SMART goals? So when we come back on over here to the T is timely. TVA account. The T is timely. And that comes into a very important part of making your goals. That your goals need to be done by a particular time. That is part of measuring it, and that's part of being accountable. So, like if you say, okay, I will write like so many words by the end of the week. I will write 2,000 words this week. That's the timely aspect. Or I will have a book ready to go by the end of the year. I have a whole year to work on this. Whatever it is, you need to have some sort of time frame that you are working with. If you just say, I will write a book, and you don't have anything, you don't have a time that you're aiming for, that book might never get finished because there's nothing pushing you to get it done. And so that's where the time definitely comes in. And also, again, where having people hold you accountable is very important. George, smart goals? Yes, smarts. George is back. I just realized I forgot about time zones. Yes, those pesky time zones. Wouldn't it just be all better if it all just blew away? Then the Earth would be condensed to a very flat marble. It wouldn't even be a marble, just a very flat, small disc. Eesh. No thanks. Yes, timely. Stick to a schedule. Now then, make a plan. Making plans suck for a lot of people. And I will tell you this, I'm someone who hates making plans. I hate making plans because most of my plans will fall apart. I'm also not very good at making plans. I'll be absolutely honest. But you need to make plans if you're going to make goals. They are essential. Set dates that are within your capabilities. And then set mile markers in order to help you keep track of the progress that you're making. Because one of the worst things that you can do for yourself is say, I will write 2,000 words by the end of the week. And let's say that you're someone who struggles to write 300 words a day. So 2,000 words within a week is doable. But if you put off writing anything, and you only usually write about 300 words a day until Saturday or Sunday to write, you're going to find yourself in a really horrible instance where you're trying to write way more than you usually do to meet your goal, and that leads to burnout. So you don't want to do that. Drige, congratulations, Lars. You have made the singularity of a black hole. Yeah, I don't want to do that to my beloved Earth. I like it the way it is. It doesn't need to become a black hole. Drige says, I struggle to write. Well, again, this is where goals and goal setting can help you out. And if you have a hard time writing, small goals really help out. Mimic, or I will butcher the ending of my story and leave my fans distraught for life and then retire. Oh, that's so horrible. It's almost like the J.K. Rowling way of doing things, only she didn't retire. So, again, set dates that are reachable, that are within your capabilities. Set mile markers to help you know that you're making progress. Make your plans known to others. And really, that is all about budgeting your time and making a proper agenda. This is essential not just for writing, but really for all success in life. Having goals, having plans, having ways of keeping yourself accountable and knowing that you're staying on the path to achieve what you want to achieve. That will lead to success. Shay says, this is the dream. Arts, I can do a nice small fanfic in a few hours. If I need inspiration, I read other people's fanfics or listen to music. Excellent. Mimic, cough. Kubo, cough. Oh, Kubo. Yeah, Kubo just needs to take a break. Oh, Kubo. TV account, do you think I should set a time to work on my comic and a place to do it in? Yes. I think that's really good. That'll help you out a whole lot. Shade says, example, like today, I will write 210 words, tomorrow 230 words, something like that. It's very good, actually. Yes, that's a very good example. So, what must you have in order to set, again, these good goals? So, understand yourself. Again, take stock of your strengths and your weaknesses. What's distracting you? What's motivating you? Who can you rely on? And so forth. That's very important. Make specific goals. Keep them realistic. Create a plan to help you succeed. Find people who will keep you accountable, and then get to work. But something important to remember. If you fail to meet a goal, that doesn't mean you're a loser and that you will never amount to anything. Nope, that is not the case. Failure is a chance to learn and improve. And then you attack that goal again and you get better. That's what failure is. Failure is an opportunity to learn. It's not a reflection of how bad you are. It just means that you have so much more room to improve. And getting up after a failure is so much better than what more people do in their lives. So many authors throw in the towel after a few hiccups. But you're better than that. I know that you are. You can do it. Art says, like that Thanksgiving fic I made, I got some inspiration that day. Woo! Shade, they recommend you to do punishment if I'm not doing the comic today in this place in this hour. No cookies. Yeah, you can definitely go that route, or an ice cream sandwich to the face. George, cue to the one scene in SpongeBob where he takes the entire time to write, and I quote, the. Yes, he does a very good the, but he's not getting very far with his story. I don't know about writing goals, but I can come up with 5 more story concepts by Sunday, LOL. And for some people, like, for instance, our good friend Scott, who is really good at coming up with story ideas and concepts, sitting down to write is one of those big things where sometimes the goal is just write a paragraph. Then tomorrow you're going to write 2 paragraphs. Then the day after that, you're going to write 3. And if you're feeling really then good on the 4th day, maybe you write 4, but otherwise then try to stick for 3 paragraphs. If you can write consistently 3 paragraphs a day, then you might be then ready to progress to writing a full page each day. Goals are there to help build you on up. Scooty Booty, I feel called out. Oh, yes, I did. And I mean, people can call me out as well. If there's anything I should focus on more with my goals, if I'm going to be honest, is not burning myself out, because I flirt with burnout way too often with the goals I set for myself. They're realistic. I can hit them. The problem is that if you do too much, you eventually start wearing yourself down. And you have to know with what you really have in terms of skill and time. And that's something where I know I still need to work at. So, Scott, I have called you out, but I can also call out myself. Tia Khan says, I give myself 3 hours to work on my comic a day for 2 weeks. Fantastic. Shay says, no, you are a loser. No cookies, no fast food for your punishment. Nobody likes you. Well, you know what? I am actually one of my resolutions. Hold on a second, your big sneeze coming. Cucumber. Oh, I'm gonna regret that one. Oh, there we go. Oy. The magic word cucumber. So, well, you know what? You can't take away fast food from me, because one of my resolutions for getting healthier this year is to not eat as much fast food. So there you go. You can't take that away from me. Though no cookies. That does sound a little disappointing. Greco says, best video and live stream ever. Well, thank you very much. And all the bless yous. Thank you, guys. Yeah, that was a bad sneeze. Shay says, the same. I don't know why, but I feel he's talking to me, and I would not fail ever in my life. I'm perfect. Isa says, Scooty Booty, don't worry. We are the same. So, in terms of demonstrating this, because it's always important for the teacher to demonstrate exactly what you want to do in regards to actually applying a lesson. Put the cookies down. So understanding yourself. So for the year of 2025, things are going to be a little bit different for me than they have been for the past 2 years, because it's time for me to go out there and get a job. Because, hey, writing and YouTube, unfortunately, have not been paying the bills the way I hoped that they would. So I got to do the smart thing. I would love to just continue to be creative all day long, but when duty calls and you got to put food on the table, you have to do what you have to do. So that means that I am going to have to get myself a job. This now means that I'm going to have less time than I normally would. So that's something I have to really take into consideration as I move forward. Top of that, still doing stuff on YouTube, as well as balancing some of the books that I've been working on getting published. And here's the thing: is I know for myself, I need to get works. I need to continue to work on something new. Otherwise, the burnout hits really fast. I hate editing. And most of this year is going to be a lot of editing for me. So with less time, because I'll be working, plus doing stuff on YouTube and having to edit, I don't have a whole lot of time to write new stuff. So making then my specific goals, some of the things that I wish to, so some stuff I definitely know I'm going to be doing in this new year is I'm going to be focusing on some shorter stories. For those of you who have ever had a look at some of my books, you realize some of my books are kind of big. Not all of them. It's actually kind of funny because I've got my collection of some of my books up next to other books that other people have written. And really most of my books aren't that big when compared to other people. It's just like stuff like Knights of Halley Cruise, The Dark Rebellion, everything related to the Legends of the Ten Lords is hefty. Those are some big books. Those are the 300,000 word plus books. So for this year, I'm going to have to focus on shorter stories. But in order then to still reach that, I need to set for myself good, concise goals for what I can actually do each day to reach that goal. Gerard says, might be a bit too personal, but what jobs are you considering to get, Lars? Gerard, to answer that question, I'm first going to look into tutoring positions. I have a background in education, and I think that would be something, even though I don't know if I'm yet ready to go back into a classroom. I think it would be nice to kind of get a little bit back into that. And I've gotten some really good advice about other places I can look to do online schooling, to be an online educator. And so I'm going to be looking into that. And I don't know when I'm going to get those jobs or if I'm going to get those jobs, but I just know that at some point I will be working. And so that working another job than this, and that's going to eat into my usual production time. Working fast food again, Lars? Oh, no. Oh, I'm never going back to that. It would be the last thing I have to do. It would be the last thing on my list. The absolute last thing. I'll go into waste management first. And hey, waste management pays well. Ooh, do not insult trash truck drivers. They make good money. Also, they don't have to pick up your garbage, and then it gets really smelly. Shade says, I have an advice for you. Use time management. You could have the same time, you could have the same energy, the same count, the same writing with time management, like nothing changes. Well, I can do that. It's just going to come down to, once I actually have that job, readjusting as necessary. But I know I won't have the whole day to write like I normally have. So I'll have to get a little bit more creative with how I use my time. Waste management has a good office. Yes, they do. So again, understanding myself, also knowing this as gay, and how am I being personal with this? I had to deal with burnout at the end of 2024. I had a really, really hard time the last month, which was nice that it was December because I could just spend more time trying to enjoy the Christmassy season and working on videos. But I really wasn't feeling like sitting down to write, which was difficult for me because that meant that 2 stories of mine really got put off to the wayside. So as far as then, like, what is it that I want to do then going into this new year with writing, I've already written up a pretty extensive to-do list and how I want to do things. And so, excuse me, I got to take another drink of water right here. Good water. Thank you, Shade. You could do it. You are the GOAT. Burn, baby, burn. Thank you, Shade. So what I'm going to do, I'll already tell you guys kind of what my goal, what my writing goal is for going into January. And this is me having a whole lot of different goals. And I got so much I want to try to tackle. But for January, I'm going to be working on editing one of the books that I hope to publish before the end of this year. And so I've set out for myself, I'm like, okay, if I work on a chapter a day for this particular book, I can get the entire book reviewed, edited, and moved closer to publishing within its 5th draft. So I'll be working right now on its 5th draft. I can be completely done with the 5th draft by the end of March. That's the goal. In the meantime, because I need to work on something fresh and something new, otherwise I'm going to go insane because I just can't stand editing all the time, I am going to continue working on the Connected Cartoon Universe fanfic and also on a project of mine, The Princess and Her Gorskur, which is a story that is connected to my Tumble Teller book. And so I'm going to be working on those. And my goal is to be able to write 1,000 words for each one of those stories each day. Now then, I know for some people that's going to sound like a whole lot, and for some people it absolutely is. For me, that is something that I know I can reach, because on a very good day of writing, I can easily do 3,000 to 4,000 words a day. As someone who's right now coming out of burnout, as I've been writing, I've realized that I can do easily 1,500 words a day before I begin to start getting really distracted and tired from writing. And so my goal is 2,000 words a day. 1,000 words for The Princess and Her Gorskur, 1,000 words for the Connected Cartoon Universe. So that way I'm working on new stories while I'm slogging through editing. So now then, okay, I will be doing that throughout January. January is kind of my time to step back from worrying too much about publishing and all those other things. For just January, just get back into the habit of writing after burnout, and just get back on track. And then come February, I'm going to switch gears, and I'm going to start writing my take for a fairy tale on a lesser known grim fairy tale, which is the setting table, the gold ass, and the cudgel in the sack. Really weird name for a fairy tale, but that's what I'm going to start working on in February, and dedicate my time to writing out the rough draft for that. And that's going to be a novella, 40,000 words or less. And so that's something I know I can easily crank out within that time and just have some fun with it, and then get back again to working on the editing and everything like that. So that's what I'm looking towards. Now then, who do I have? I do have a specific plan again of this, how much I have to write each day. I've already looked at the calendar and I've made notes of what days I'm going to be, for instance, at the Renaissance Festival, selling my books and having that kind of fun. In March, hanging out with friends, with Scott, going to the Tucson Festival of Books and back to the Renaissance Festival, but this time it's just a person enjoying the festivities. And so I'll be focusing on that. That for some days, giving myself a chance to do something else fun and creative and step away from work. You have to have those moments, but otherwise I've planned it out exactly when and how much and so on and so forth. Hoo-wee. So who are the people who are going to keep me accountable? Obviously Scott with ice cream sandwiches. But also the more people I tell, the more people who can hold me accountable for that. And so I expect that people will be checking in on me and be badgering me like, hey, Lars, how's the writing going along? So that way I can actually do it. Because again, without people holding you accountable, it's very hard to get stuff done. One of the things that I have taught myself, though, and this doesn't always work because you can always talk yourself out of keeping yourself accountable. I've done it way too many times myself. But when I first started really getting to writing, there was a time I was working on a fan fiction for Bleach, and I promised myself that I would upload a new chapter every single week. And I think with the exception of 1 week, I actually did that every single week for a fairly long for a fairly long fanfic. It took up almost a whole year. And the reason why I did that is because I said, if no one else is going to hold me accountable to fulfill my dreams, I will hold myself accountable. And so I can hold myself pretty well accountable, but there's definitely times where I will talk myself out of doing what I should do. And having other people there to be like, hey, Lars, you got to work on this. That is key. So let me actually hop on over to where I have my goals. Here I have on another document, goals for 2025. My big goals for this year are that I'm going to publish The White Snake, which is a story that I've been working on. For those of you who are on our Discord, you can actually right now check out the second draft for The White Snake. It is up there for anyone to read, to enjoy, and especially to please give feedback on, because I'm going to be getting ready to publish that later this year, probably in May is what I'm right now aiming for. And then for my book, Tower of Seers, the fourth book in the Legend of the Ten Lords series, my goal is to have that published in October. There's no guarantee of that. And so I actually have right here. So January through March, Tower of Seers, review a chapter every day. Conduct the final read through of Tower of Seers during the end of the summer and make sure that the artwork is commissioned and put into motion by the end of March. Because artwork can take a long time to deliver on. So I need to make sure that the end of March, by the latest, is when that artwork has been commissioned and is finally underway. Because if not, there's no guarantee that that artwork will be done by October. Get in touch with the artist well beforehand just to make sure that any foreseeable hiccups can be headed off earlier. Aim to publish Tower of Seers in October. As inspiration for certain scenes and chapters hit, already get a head start on editing portions of the sixth book, The Guardian's Door. So I already have that written down in a special document for myself. So yeah, my year is going to be busy. That's just part of it. All right, so that's what I'm going to be working on already here at the beginning. But let's see what you guys have to say here. Can the garbage people pick me up too? I'm pretty trashy myself, and I bet they'd make double the money. Oh, don't talk about yourself that way, Mimic. Drudge, I mean, I could make some money selling your organs. Oh, lovely. Please don't. Shade says, I have advice for you. If you have burnout, take a topic you are very interested in, write for it like a game sign. Other stuff after that, what do you want? Do what you want or origin to write. Okay. All right. Yeah. Definitely focusing on something that you have interest on is a really great way of getting back some of that energy. Drudge, another sidetrack, sorry, but how can you get over procrastination? Drudge, in order to answer that, how do you deal with procrastination? It is hard. And this is, again, where having people to hold you accountable really helps. Because if you have enough people telling you, you got to do this, we know what you want to do, with enough people telling you that you need to work on it, that usually helps out a whole lot. But you also need to prepare yourself. Again, take stock of who you are. What is distracting you? What is causing you to procrastinate? And sometimes that's something that you have to work on before you can really settle down and really work on being your best creative self. It takes a little bit of effort. It takes some time. It takes some preparation. Procrastination is real. And so sometimes, like, one thing that I actually do, this is especially something I did in college, is that I would actually let myself procrastinate. But there were times I was like, okay, then I really want to go play ping pong just because I got 15 minutes to play ping pong. When that's done, I am going to grab up a Pop-Tart, go back into a study room, and I'm going to work. And so that's what I would do. And again, I had to kind of hold myself accountable to that. if I had been brave, if I was brave enough to tell people what I was doing, they would try to hold me accountable. So in order to overcome procrastination, Jiraj, you need to have people there holding you accountable, and you need to make plans. You need to get rid of that stuff that's causing you to procrastinate, but also give yourself some time to be lazy or to do something else. That is actually very healthy and very positive. Shade says you really need a lot of money. Could always go the Breaking Bad route. Oh boy. I do not want to wander off into Miranda to join the drug dealers. I really don't. I have another thing you could do, like a video, 5 minutes, 8 minute story videos, like the hero killed the Lord, something like that. If you really have a lot of burnout, yeah. Have another little project to work on the sides. It's one of the things I've enjoyed about doing That Time I Married a Goddess. It's so different from everything else that I do on this channel, and that it makes it fun. Scooby, to fight procrastination, you need to give yourself actual consequences, rewards sometimes. Lars, tell them about the ice cream sandwiches. Ice cream sandwiches. Exactly. Once again, have people to hold you accountable. And I really do mean that. So if you have someone that you can trust, maybe it doesn't need to be ice cream sandwiches that either you get to eat or get smashed into your face. Maybe it's like a friend is going to be like, hey, I'm going to make you cookies. And either you get like really delicious cookies, or I'm going to give you burnt cookies. You meet your goal, you get good cookies. If you don't meet your goal, I'm giving you burnt cookies. Thanks. You shouldn't have. Have some sort of reward / punishment system. The punishment should never be anything that's like really awful. I don't believe that that's actually helpful, because that can really end up demotivating you. But if the punishment's something kind of silly, then it's like, okay, then yes, I know I didn't do what I was supposed to, but the reward is really nice, but it's not like something overly expensive or overly indulgent. So that way you don't train yourself to just work for the reward, but rather you're working because you actually enjoy what you like doing, and the reward is just a nice added bonus on top of that. That's what the reward system is meant to be. Arts, instead of one-shots, I'm going to try and just work on one long fanfic series that I'm going to release in small chunks. That sounds awesome, Arts. I'm looking forward to that. Drudge, or get the money from the organ harvesting and buy a bit of black tar that you can resell it towards the new underage market. Oh, boy. Shade, sometimes the best thing is seem very interesting. Topic will allow you to write more. I see religion, esoterica, occultism videos in books give me a lot of ideas, or thinking of ways to break the magic system of a certain magical index, one of the best light novels, or seeing the meaning of occultism and religion in it. Overwatch Deltarune theories. Yes, give yourself a chance to go and do something else and gain some inspiration from that. What Shade is basically saying right here is very similar to what I've said in the past of, if you feel like you have writer's block, go for a walk and just start asking questions, because inspiration will come to you. I guarantee it. TV count. I know this seems off topic, but it's about ideas and concepts. It's something that I have been thinking about for a while, with good ideas being wasted on bad or terrible creators like Yandere Dev. Oof. Like, what makes it bad, the creator or the expectation? Oh, I forgot to add Thomas Ostruck in that example, says TV account. So TV account, what I would say is this, is that as far as I know from what my friends have introduced me to about Yandere Dev, is that it's a fun idea. As we've talked about before, most story ideas, most concepts are really good, but it's in the execution that they start falling apart. And that normally comes down to the creator. And unfortunately, Yandere Dev just did not have the right planning and energy behind it. But it was a great idea that garnered a lot of expectations, a lot of love, a lot of popularity. And when it couldn't be delivered on, that's when it all started falling apart. And so this actually addresses an issue that, for instance, I have just now said I plan by May to be publishing one book and by October another book. That's dangerous stuff for me to say, because there's no way I can guarantee that those books will be published at that time without lots of planning and preparation done, especially on my part. Big production companies, Hollywood, publishing companies, comics can almost guarantee that a story will be ready for consumption at this time because they have the resources to ensure that it is ready by a certain time. And then they still have to rely on the creators to do their jobs right in order to make it work, to all come together. And so it's very dangerous to say, I will have something done by this time. If you can't, like, think about Toby Fox. Toby Fox promised us that we would get Deltarune back last year, but we didn't. And a lot of people got very angry with Toby for that. And like I'm in that position as a creator where I know what kinds of things Toby might be going through. Maybe not intimately to the point where I'm like, oh yeah, I know totally what's happening to you, Toby. But I can appreciate it. I can empathize with it. And so what Toby is saying, it's going to be released sometime in 2025. I guarantee it will be. That's the right way to go about it. It's not a troll move on Toby's part. It's just the reality. So yeah, expectations can be crushing. It's good as a creator to set reasonable goals and dates and let people know I'm aiming for this and I'm going to do my best to get it there. And if I don't, you then have to be courageous, to be all honest. You have to be courageous and go before the masses and say, I know I said I was going to have it done by this time. Here's what I have. Let me share with you certain things I can share. However, it's going to take a little bit more time. This is what happened, and I'm going to do my best to get it to you soon. When you're honest with your audience, people will usually reciprocate that. There will always be those jerks who are going to blow up and be angry, and you can ignore them. So long as you're doing your best and being honest with other people, most people are willing to be patient with the creator. Can you believe that 2020 is now 5 years ago? Yikes. Yeah, that's something. Oh boy, that is something. And yet it feels like not too long at all for me. It's amazing how much time has passed and how much I've been able to do. Oh boy. But yeah, it's weird. It doesn't feel like 5 years, but it's been 5 years. Sometimes it feels like it's been longer. Shade says, I recommend everybody here has an interest for Deltarune to watch Deltarune Fourth Wall Theory. It's very interesting. Gives me a lot of ideas for stuff. Well, very good. Thank you for that. Dredge, to make the firearm, buy a pair of tubing. Oh boy. Fired by the pin. Well, we'll skip over that just that way YouTube doesn't go after me. Shade says it's a good idea and making short fanfiction videos would be cool. Say making some fanfiction videos would be pretty cool. I still intend to do that video talking about Birdly in the newest Deltarune update. That is still on my list. I have not forgotten it. If you're selling me in that garbage market, you'll get all the money in the world because I'm perfect trash. All right. Okay. Radioactive cookies is punishment. Yeesh. You can get demon cookies or 100% not possessed. Don't say his name is forbidden. I have trauma. Very good idea. Bad things he's done. I'm still traumatized. Yeah, there's a little bit of context missing here, Drudge. All right. Oh yeah, chapter 2. Thus he went on from just launching it somewhen within 2025. Oops, 3 and 4. Oop, unable to do chapter 4 in time. Chapter 3 or 4 this year. Yeah. Mimic, I also agree, Mr. Lars. If you have writer's block, you want to take a hike, touch some grass. Hey, touching grass is wonderful. The grass here in my neck of the woods is a little bit prickly. Dorcas, why are you talking about Birdly in regards to the updates? Dorcas, the reason why is because we actually got in the newest update from Toby a little bit of dialogue about Birdly inviting someone to go to the fair with him. And we're not sure if he's inviting Chris or inviting Susie or inviting both. And so the video I want to do is to look at all three of those and see what might be, do some theory crafting and talk about what it would mean for Birdly and for us as the players in any one of those situations. Because since we don't know, like, it's really tantalizing. And the shippers are already out going crazy over this. But more so than shipping, I'm very interested and what this might actually mean for the timeline. But this basically tells us is that the whole like fair conversation at the end of chapter 2 has way more weight and meaning than we might have previously guessed. And so I'm very interested in seeing what we might be able to glean out of that. So that's going to be some fun to get into. Diego says, sorry, I meant to say execution story. The execution story. Well, no worries there, no worries there, TV count. Shay says, we need more turn-on videos from you. You can make reaction videos from other people's theories and comment for it. Well, Shade, I've thought about that, but I myself usually really enjoy coming up with my own stuff. Like there have been things I've commented on here during the live streams, but I'm not one really for commentary videos. I know that they're very popular, but I feel like that doesn't exactly jive with my style. If someone else in the harem really wants to do that, then they're free to go ahead and do that. That's the beauty of our channels, that we have quite a bit of freedom to talk about anything creative and writing related and do it the way that we want to. But reaction videos aren't necessarily my jam. Hey everybody, I recommend you watch How to Kill a Time Traveler video. Is very good. Okay. Need the views, man. Sometimes you need to do stuff to get the money. yeah, say definitely trying to milking the views. Actually, I'm going to kind of bring that up a bit in a video that I've been planning and working on, which will be looking at how indie animation did versus mainstream animation this past year. And there's a whole lot to talk about. One of the things I definitely intend to bring up as far as like the views go is that for the last time I did that, the video got some pretty good views, but it did not reach the people that I hoped that it would. And also a lot of the people who do this kind of commentary have gotten weirdly political. It's really frustrating. And it's so hard to enjoy certain videos anymore, which is a real pain. And let's see. I'm going to quickly read what Fabio wrote right here, and then I'm going to quickly get onto my stump and just rant just a wee bit. Fabio, man, I still got Poops to Bluke, Pete's, and VB Woody Theory secret boss interpretations in mind. And Anthony says it's tough watching videos like that. I get what you're saying there, Anthony. Shade says, okay, give me your take about the religious symbolism in Deltarune Undertale. Come on, give me your take. I'm very interested. And what is your most hated character in both games? Mimic, there also seems to be quite a lot of drama in the art commentary community for some reason. So you're right about dodging that bullet, Lars. He just won the money politics, and money are very connected. All right. So as far as like religious symbolism in the games go, Shade, I'll be honest. I think I'd have to do some research and really see what I might pull out of there. If anything, I think there's more of a commentary on the nature of the soul and of free will, which is a great philosophical discussion. And it's definitely something that lots of various religions definitely focus on, the nature of free will and of destiny and the likes. And so that would definitely be something I could talk about. But if I were to talk about that in a video, I would definitely want to make sure that I do my research and really lay out my words right before diving into it, because that's something that could very easily just run awry and I end up saying something that I didn't really intend. So yeah. But there's definitely a lot of commentary within the games about free will, about the nature of the soul. And I find that to be very interesting. And again, depending on what kind of lens you wish to use, whatever kinds of philosophical or religious lens you use, you can end up having some really interesting discussions and insights. Both game has the Angel of Death, originally from Judaism and Islam. So you have the Angel of Death, but also understand that many different cultures and religions have also appropriated various angels and what their meanings are. For instance, a very good story, which is Make the Exorcist Fall in Love, is definitely tied into a lot of various religious interpretations and aspects. And it might feel very Catholic, but it's not actually Catholic. It is more esoteric and occult. And that's here. When I say occult, I've got to get this right because it make people upset. But Make the Exorcist Fall in Love taps more into the old understanding of the Jewish Cabal, which is not what most people think it is. It's an understanding of basically ancient magic. What if you looked at the Talmud and the Torah, not so much as religious texts, but rather as a recipe for power, and not political power, but actual magical and divine power is what the ancient Cabal looked at. And so when you understand that and then read Make the Exorcist Fall in Love, it makes it a very interesting experience because it looks and reads Catholic, but it's not Catholic at all. So that's something to think about when you decide to take a religious perspective on any particular story. You really need to make sure that you do your work to figure out what you're actually looking at, and so that way you can get it right, because it's so easy to get it wrong. All right. So with that being said, with that being said, I said I wanted to quickly just get on my stump and rant just a little bit. It's getting harder and harder as YouTubers to not get pulled into the realms of what is political. And I say that because it's something that I'm just seeing so many YouTubers who had nothing to do with politics now getting into politics. And so many of them had just bad takes. And it's not like, oh, I disagree with your take. It's like, no, that's a bad take. That's a bad take. When I'm working on whatever I'm doing throughout the day, I listen to all different kinds of videos. I try to get world news, political news, and all that stuff because I like to be well informed. And what I've come to realize is that just so many people who are now trying to turn their channels into entertainment / political channels, they're so far off. It's like, oh my gosh, what the heck is going on here? And I say, wait, it's all politics, always has been? No. That's the thing, is that politics always tries to consume what other people are interested in, because politics is like that kid in school that thrives off of people's attention. And if it can't get people's attention, it will then try to appropriate other people's hobbies and interests in order to make people pay attention to them. That is what politics is. Politics has very little say in most things that people do on a day-to-day basis and what they're interested in. But because politicians need to make themselves seem cool, hip, relatable, that you should vote for them and give them your support and your power, then they need to then comment on all these things that they literally have no idea about. And so as I've been working on getting information for videos about the state of the entertainment industry, looking at indie animation, looking into theories for all different kinds of great stories, it's become so frustrating how much of it has been taken over by politics. It's so annoying. Politics this, politics that. And no, I don't care. Voted for. It has absolutely nothing to do with the stories that I enjoy. And on top of that, American politics is American politics. What about the rest of the world, huh? We have a number of people here in the chat who are not from America. And they live in very different places with very different makeups, different languages, different societies, different politics, everything. And so if I start getting political, for instance, that doesn't mean much of anything to you guys. If I start commenting on the politics in your country, I'm absolutely ignorant about that kind of stuff. And that's not what this channel is about. This channel is about how to become good storytellers, how to become the best writers that you can be. And I think that it's really interesting to talk about fictional politics. And I think one of these days I really need to introduce you guys to the Alethi court. That way you guys can see real fantasy politics in action. Or even introduce you guys to Trenzy court, which has a very interesting way of doing politics. And that's fun to talk about. These are one thing something to get into because it has absolutely to do with the real world's going on. And it's not tied to all of these debates that people are so heated over. Again, most of these debates are things that people are not well informed about. So I hate how many channels are now going political. And that's one of the things that makes it actually difficult to do like good commentary and whatnot, is because so many people are now trying to tie it back to politics. And that's stupid. And it's basically because all these people are jumping onto a bandwagon that's already passed now. Most people are bored and sick and tired of it. I don't want to hear anymore. And so some of the stuff that I want to do moving forward, again, especially talking about indie animation, indie storytelling, indie publishing, I'm really having to now kind of go off on my own, because a lot of the channels that I once listened to very happily because they had amazing insights are now just so darn political. And again, they just have bad takes. And now they're warping and twisting facts to fit some weird political agenda. And it's just silly. Like, I would once recommend to you guys channels like Valiant Renegade or WDW Pro for good insights into what's happening with Disney and business. But now it's all politics. And it's so dang frustrating. So, yeah. As far as this channel goes, we're going to do our absolute best to keep ourselves out of that political realm. Because Camille's Harem is not about that kind of stuff. We want everyone to be well educated, to be well informed about issues that they're interested in, but we're not going to give any opinions on that kind of stuff because that's up to you guys. We have our own opinions. Sometimes they're well informed, sometimes they're ignorant, and we're not going to preach them like gospel truth. And again, that's not the topic or the focus of this channel. And I wish that more YouTubers would finally get back to talking about what they're really good at and not being wrapped up in all of this nonsense. Oy. So, don't know if pop culture. Let's see here. I'm trying to catch up with all this. Let's see if I can catch up with this stuff. Anthony Dixon. It's all about having fun and enjoying fan fiction and shipping. Oh yeah. Politics was the pandemic before the pandemic. But so what, a lot of the stuff that Shade's right now bringing up are things dealing with numerology, the occult, religion, and whatnot, which is some very interesting stuff. If you're willing to get into it, which is not necessarily for everyone. Like, for instance, let me actually bring up an example. So I went to go see the movie Nosferatu with my oldest sister, her husband, and one of my nieces. And it's interesting because I can definitely really appreciate the movie for how technically brilliant it was. Like, it was a well put together movie. But I'll be honest, I'm not necessarily a huge fan of vampire stories. There are some vampire stories that I really like, but the OG Dracula story doesn't necessarily tickle me pink. It's not something I'm interested in. And Nosferatu is an occult take on the original Dracula story by Bram Stoker. Before I went and saw the movie, I'd actually watched a really excellent documentary on the original Nosferatu and how it draws from a lot of occult symbolism and understanding. And when you understand that, it then makes sense why the young girl has to sacrifice herself in the end in order to defeat the vampire. So I went into the movie knowing that and understanding it, and I could appreciate the ending. My brother-in-law, who would never investigate anything about the occult or anything like that, was completely shocked by the movie, was absolutely horrified, and took away a very different message away from that movie. Where I'm like, were we watching the same movie? Say what? So sometimes having that knowledge into some of these things can help you better understand certain stories. There are some stories that really lean into that, like Nosferatu. But not all stories actually really dive deep into that stuff. There's a lot of creators, especially a lot of mangaka, who love taking symbols from the occult, but they have no idea what they're actually talking about and just throw it on in there because it looks cool or interesting. So something to think about when coming across certain stories. Just because a story has some of those symbols or some of those ideas doesn't actually mean that the author knows anything about what they're talking about. Shane, I know just reading other Arabic dialect, your brain will be destroyed. Dialect. I can comment on dialect. German dialects are fun. They also get really, really weird. Actually, let me quickly share the story before we start wrapping things up right here. Here's an example of a dialect destroying people. Once on a bus in Austria, in a city called Klagenfurt, which is in the literal armpit of the country, there was this drunk guy who was trying to hit on a teenage girl on the bus. And she turned around and she said very crossly to him, "Wer kennt me?" And I was like, "Wait, what the heck?" And then the guy's like, "Soll ich dich kennen?" And she's like, and then she repeated, "Woher kennt me?" Now, for anyone who actually knows German, if I say "Woher kennt me," does not sound like German in the slightest. What she said is, "Woher kennst du mich?" "Woher kennst du mich" is basically would translate to "Do I know you?" or "Do I know you from somewhere?" is how you would translate that into English. The dialect changed that into "Woher kennt me?" Because in the dialect of that area of Canton, as it's called, they drop like half of each word, and then they also say it differently. They pronounce everything differently. So, yeah, dialect gets crazy. Shade says, feel good manga whose authors no way. Talking about Berserk, Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, and Black Clover. Do not forget video games, Dark Souls, and Bloodborne, and the rest of the games have a lot of religious and cold symbolism. I can talk a bit about Berserk. Actually, I will definitely be ranting about Berserk versus Übelblatt here in a little bit. Scott and I are getting ourselves ready for our recommendation of the upcoming anime this season based on their manga. And let me just say this. There's one manga that's getting adapted that I've seen a lot of people say, this is the next Berserk. And after having read a couple of chapters into the series thus far, I'm like, this isn't Berserk. It has the same painting as Berserk, but it's not Berserk. If Berserk is a beautiful painted black Lamborghini, Ubelblatt is like someone painting a VW Bug black and trying to pass it off as a Lamborghini. Oh, I will have more to say about that later. Just because a story decides to have an expansive history with an angsty protagonist, a black swordsman, occult imagery, violence, and sexual encounters, does not make it a good story. Mick says, but now these intense shipping wars have become the new political wars in a sense that people are literally killing each other over non-canonical ships. It is whack. Yes, which is why back during Murder Drones, even though I was all aboard the Envy ship, I'm like, look, I don't, so long as the story's good, I really don't care. And I will even argue for one ship and another. I gave the evidence for the Newsy ship, and Newsy set sail, and congratulations to them. I hope those shippers are all doing well. You don't need to let it come and rule and ruin your life. Hey, Drudge managed to make a short intro on it. Fantastic. I'm happy you're able to write that, Drudge. That is great. To start writing your own liminal space story. I hope it works out really well. I remember the Naruto ship war. Yeah, luckily I was not part of that community at the time. Same thing for Judge says, mind if I share? Yeah, sure. Feel free to start sharing. It means I'll just say, like, I remember being introduced to Undertale at the time, and when I saw when I was first introduced to Undertale, I saw all of the crazy shipping war stuff, and I was like, what the heck? And I didn't even bother playing the game because of it. And later on, when I finally did play the game, I was like, wow, this game is so amazing. It was the fans that made it awful. Do not forget the Bleach shipboard. Oh yeah. I still got them coming around and harassing me on my Ichiruki video. And I'm like, guys, I can tell who's watched the video and who hasn't, because in the video I'm like, canon is canon. Ichigo got together with Orihime. That's the story. And I'm not going to be upset about it, other than that Kubo didn't do Orihime justice to make that ship really work, so that way it would sail well. And that's the problem. The Undertale shipping wars are crazy, man. Like a real world show horror. Yes. Yep. I ain't about that. And sure, I may ship cruisy, but like I'm not going to hinge my enjoyment of the story on whether or not two characters get together. I enjoyed playing Deltarune long before I started backing any one pairing in the game. Mick says, yeah, I also agree with Anthony. The Bakudeku shippers are an entire species of their own. I've seen some of that. That's really weird. I've actually been asked to do a video about the romance aspect of My Hero Academia, and not necessarily focusing on the shipping wars, but rather focusing on what was done between Deku and Uraraka. And I think that'll be a very interesting video to do sometime, because My Hero Academia is an excellent example of trying to do too much, and the mangaka or the author realizing, look, I have way more important things to do than romance. And that's why a lot of the ships get kind of left off to the side. In fact, actually, it was the side relationships, if you're paying attention to them, that get way more development than Deku and Uraraka, and definitely way more development than any kind of romantic inclination between Deku and Bakugo. In fact, Deku and Bakugo work brilliantly as friends and rivals, which I really appreciated when reading the manga. And that was just shipping tendencies got in the way of people appreciating that. I'm Omega is here. Honestly, I'm just excited for the new writer and common writer Gav. That aside, I plan on releasing my pilot issue for Mars Dora Genesis, one page at a time. Any advice for a good pilot? I'm Omega. When you're asking about any advice for a good pilot, are you talking about how you'd like to structure that, or about where to release your story? Can you clarify that a little bit, and I can then hopefully give you some good advice. From religion and occultism into shipping wars. Yep, that we tackle it all here at Camille's Harem, other than real world politicking. Shade says, I have a question. If you are creating something and people have a shipping war, what are you supposed to do? People attack the creator of My Hero Academia for not making the ship canon, and they follow it and Twitter 10,000 people. Here's the thing, Shade, to quickly answer your question before I start reading off what Jiraj has been writing here, is that you can't control what people are going to do with your story. Shippers are going to ship. They're going to do that regardless of what you do. And there are some authors who go out of their way to show that a potential ship is really bad, but readers and fans will still do it anyway. And I find it a little silly sometimes when authors try to really grind down, no, your ship was bad. For instance, in the 5th book of the Stormlight Archive, Wind and Truth, there's a part in the book that was written specifically to tell the Shallan and Kaladin shippers to stop it. Where Kaladin and Shallan, independent of each other, are like, yeah, no, our relationship would never have worked out. I love Adolin so much. And Kaladin's like, I don't have to worry about romance anymore. I'm all good. And then his friend Sill's like, I need to get you laid, man. It's so fun. It's so funny reading that. I'm like, wow, Sanderson, you didn't need to actually put that in there. I knew that Shallan loved Adolin. I got that back in book 3. I didn't need that here in book 5. And yes, Kaladin actually needs himself a healthy relationship. Mimic, oh yeah, any thoughts on Sonic 3, Mr. Lars? I personally thought it was amazing and a beautiful love letter to the Sonic fandom. I know this is going to make some people upset. I haven't yet seen it. I had wanted to watch it earlier, but too many things have just been popping up recently. So I need to make sure I actually set aside a time soon to go and watch it, and then I can then give my opinion on it. But I've only heard good things. I'm really looking forward to watching it. Okay, so let me start reading what Drudge has written right here. This is the introduction to his liminal space story. You have found yourself somewhere strange. The halls wrapped around you resemble an office, or maybe an impossibly large hotel. A cascade of off-white walls, shades of gray for a carpet, room after featureless room, a view unbroken by anything at all. No windows to show you the outside world, no piece of furniture, no decorative plants, not even a corporate poster to break the monotony, just the stretching of the same hallway before you, and oddly enough, forever after you. You don't attempt to ask how you got here, though you felt like you sort of fell through reality. But in any case, you have more pressing matters at hand. All right, I'm liking what I'm reading right there. Lars, as a crime, you need to see it. I know I need to see it, and I know I'm going to like it too. I said I just need to set aside the time to go see it. I'm Omega. Well, I'm wondering, do I just write the show? Do I just write how the show is going to be like, or do I need to info dump for your pilots? So I'm Omega. To answer your question there about doing a pilot, here's what I would suggest. If you are, let's see right here. Please, though, tell me on what site are you going to be releasing your story? Because that will definitely structure how you start to introduce it. Because you definitely want to let people know what they're getting into. You want to give them some information. Do not info dump. Do not info dump. People do not like info dumps. I have to agree with Shade right here. Judge, what you wrote was really, really good. Not sure how to continue. I'd say, again, at that point, think about, say, I know that you're basically using a second person narration. Still, think about the person who is supposed to be in this liminal space and how are they reacting? What are those more pressing matters at hand? Do they see something, or is it rather that they can't remember their name, or what? Since they fell through reality, that's what I would start focusing on. Who is this person, and what are they feeling as they're now in this extra space? ISO, if there's ever a shipping war over my stories, I might have to make the incorrect ship toxic just out of spite. Oh, well, probably not. I'll just have to establish why it wouldn't work. And right there with ISO, like, yeah, you can do that as a creator. I personally feel like a good story speaks for itself. That you can do an excellent job of showing why that the people that you got together work really well together. And if your fans are all like, hey, but these two characters would work even better together. And then you just have to say, look, I knew that these characters need to get together, and that's how I wrote the story. And so that's what I did, and I hope that you enjoyed how those characters got together. If you think that these other characters would work well together, please tell me. What did you see? And actually have people speak back to you. Engage them in a conversation. And then you can then praise them for their attention to detail and for their theories and everything, and say, yeah, that could be really good. And then you can then tell them, but this is how that would have changed the story. Because every element allows the story to get to where I needed it to be, including the relationship. If the relationship was different, it might not have been the ending that you enjoy so much. And I think that that's the healthier way to approach it as a writer. Dry says they didn't recognize their body, and it is about a lack of self-identity in the modern world. Okay, then. So excellent. I agree with Shade right there, George, that you need to put your head into the character, who they are, what their life experience is. So yeah. So definitely think about how the character is reacting to this new space, how their body is feeling, and everything else. That disconnectedness, that feeling of being lost. If that's what you're aiming for, Jiraj, that's what you got to dive into. ISO says, the Murder Drones fandom has traumatized me with envy and Uzi wars. They insist that N was Uzi's guard dog more than a lover. That's actually what made me do my first relationship analysis of them. They are definitely incorrect. And yeah, say, I don't see how anyone could interpret that differently. And I'm saying that as someone who ships N with V. That honestly, Liam leaned into developing the relationship between N and Uzi. They were friends, but they're friends who then became something more. And you can see that development, you can see that evolution on screen. I will say that it mostly comes from Uzi's side, which doesn't really help, because it's one of the things that makes it seem like them getting together just came out of nowhere, because there's still plenty to suggest, especially after episode 5, that N still has very strong feelings for V, and that they were at one point were reciprocated. And so you're like, well, are we going to get any resolution on that? Why does N choose Uzi over V? We'd like to actually see that in practice. And that's where definitely like the shipping conflict, I think, has like some merit to it. But anyone who says that that the relationship wasn't romantic between N and Uzi at any point in the story wasn't paying attention. Uh, Shade, I'm very glad that you're giving Drudge there some good inspiration. Thank you very much. That's what Camille's harem is all about here. Now then, we've been going on here for almost 3 hours now, and I can definitely feel it in my voice. My voice is going a little bit more, even with the water. Good water. So even though I'm loving what Drudge is coming up with, and I'm loving seeing the inspiration and everything right here, we are going to have to start wrapping it up. So let's see here. How do we wish to wrap things up? Well, I guess I'll say this: is that just remember, make sure that you guys have your goals for this year. I think it's good to have good, strong goals that will help you guys to write the things that you wish to write. Make sure that you're being smart with them, that you measure yourself, take stock of yourself, what you can do, what you wish to achieve. Make sure that you guys are setting for yourselves achievable goals on in a timely manner, that you have people who are holding yourself accountable, and make sure that you can measure your goals. And it's not just like, oh, I wish to be better. Oh, I wish to write a book. Break it down. And if you can do that, that will really help you on out. Great Koi, thank you so much for popping on in. And thank you for participating as well. It was great having you here. So definitely take the time to set good goals for this year. And just remember that even if you don't reach all the goals that you wished, you're not a failure. You just happen to fail that one time, and you picking yourself up and getting back to it makes you a much better, much stronger, much smarter creator going forwards. And that as far as writing what you know, don't take that as something to crush you just because you feel like I don't have enough life experience. Too many people use that phrase to try to crush people, to belittle them, to say that they don't have enough experience, that they're not good enough. But really, you are. You have the experience necessary. You have the knowledge necessary. You are good enough to write, and you will continue to get better as you write. Just don't be like the people who wrote The Rings of Power, because the only reason why the guys from The Rings of Power will not get any better is because they refuse to listen to criticism and they refuse to learn from it. And as a result, that is why they continue to fail. These guys could be good creators. They could be good authors. They just are not putting in the effort to actually improve. I'm Omega. Yes, I'm Omega. I'm still waiting for your response about where you are going to post your story, because that'll help me to know exactly what I should tell you as far as like how to introduce this. Because because medium does determine some of these factors. Plot twist. I was just preparing you to go to tutoring by forcing you to give feedback. It was Drudge's plan all along. It says, facts as always, Mr. Lars. Facts. Thanks for this amazing stream. I hope you have a wonderful 2025. Thank you so much. I hope that you all have a wonderful year as well. Shade, everybody just remember to not give up. You could achieve your dream. No excuses. You achieve your goals and your dreams. Never give up. If you give up, you never achieve them. Absolutely. That's like Shia LaBeouf's a video to encourage people. Just do it. Don't let your dreams be dreams. Just do it. You said you would, but you haven't. So do it now. Those weird squats. And thank you. Yeah, you have a good night. Drudge, thank you for coming on in and enjoying the stream. Glad you did. So have a good morning, good day, good evening, wherever you guys are at. But I still do want to hear where you plan on posting before we end this. That way I don't just leave you hanging there. Or I'll have to hear it in the comments. so that way then we can then have a conversation in the comments to help you on out. And when I'm Omega does start posting a story, I hope that everyone takes the opportunity to go check it out, because I think that'll be really, really awesome. It'll be great to show our support for a fellow novice creator. I hope everyone has a good year for communities. This is very wonderful. Absolutely. And Happy New Year's to everyone. I know some people have yet to have their Lunar New Year. And that's going to be fun. Never going to give you up. Never going to let you down. Never going to run around and desert you. Yeah. I'd rather though be deserted. I'd rather get dessert than be deserted. And mimic your evil, stop it, put her in prison. No, Mimic's doing just great. Though we did kind of get a little bit rickrolled right there. Okay, I'm posting on DeviantArt and Newgrounds. Okay, and so great to have you here. Happy New Year, and see you next time. Okay, so I'm Omega. What I would suggest is this. If you happen to have any sort of like character art or sketch art that you already have kind of like set to the side and everything, what I would recommend is this. This sounds silly right here, but this is going to be important for bringing people on in. If you happen to have like sketches of characters, what I would suggest is this. Already start posting a week before you post your very first page. Begin posting some characters and say, hey, hi, this is me. I'm going to I'm going to be working on such and such story. This is what my story is about. And I'm really excited to share it with all of you. Here's some characters. And then each day you show different characters or different sketches, and you explain a little bit about it, and you then use that as a countdown. Say, in 6 days, you're going to see the first page of my new awesome comic. In 5 days, you'll see the first page to my new awesome comic. Take it down and just briefly introduce these characters to like very quick inserts. This is so-and-so. They love this. This is such and such. And they are a fan of this. This is blah, blah, blah. And their favorite color is green. And nothing really big, but it's like little quick blurbs that let people know, oh, this is the name of that character. This is the way that they look. I now know something about this character. This all looks really interesting. I am very interested in the first page. And then you start introducing the pilots. And I think if you go about it that way, that will work out really well for you, because you want to build up that excitement. That's something that, unfortunately, for a lot of creators, if they don't already have that excitement built up through other things that they've done, when they drop the first page, the first chapter, or the first book of something that they've really enjoyed working on, the world doesn't know who they are. They don't know what the story is. And so they might not be immediately bought into wanting to check it out. So building up that excitement by introducing art, introducing characters, and just a very quick blurb of what you want to talk about, that will act as the hook to already start pulling people in and getting them excited for what you're going to do, and have that countdown. That would be my my suggestion. And if you want to, by all means, please put into the comments of this video, of this live stream, write up a blurb of like what you might want to tell people. And we here in Camille's Harem, we can go on over it and give you some pointers if there's anything that needs to be fixed or tidied up or maybe explained a little bit more. And if you especially want to, you can also go onto our Discord channel and there show off what you're doing to a whole lot more people and receive more feedback. So I'm Omega. That's my feedback, my suggestion right there for posting your your story onto DeviantArt and Newground, and I hope it goes really, really well. Let us know when you finally do that, so that way we can all check it out. That'll be awesome. And with that being said, I am finally going to give my voice a rest. Thank you, everyone, so much for hanging out here for this live stream, for all of your feedback, Dredge, for sharing the introduction to your new story, Shade for also helping him out and giving some really great insight and advice, and really for everyone else for all of your fantastic comments, insights, recommendations, and everything. You guys have been awesome. This was a great way to help ring in the new year as the very first live stream of 2025, and looking forward to many more in the future. So with all that being said, hope you guys have a great day, great morning, great night, wherever you are at. And until the next video, y'all, tschüss.